Hey, how's it going, everybody? Sorry, I just flubbed. Sorry.
Take two.
Take two. I'll start over. I'm RDV. If you haven't figured that out, then I guess you're a new person watching this show for the first time. The rest of you, welcome back. I got Zach here. I got Eric Breen, Chuck Dixon, right down below me. Awesome writer. We got Eva Black Cat, our foreign.
What's up, people?
Our foreign correspondent. Then we have Tim Lim, Common America artist.
Hey, everybody. So just as I promised, we do have the illustrious Chuck Dixon here. I don't think anyone who's listening to his channel is a stranger to his work. Obviously, it speaks for itself. He was the distinguished writer on a number of Batman titles, as well as the writer who helped with the creation of Bane. Probably his most famous character that he came up with during his time at DC, amongst others. He has another distinction as being probably the most prolific writer in American comics history, if not worldwide. I have not verified that last part, but definitely in on this side of things for comic book pages and scripts, letters. I had heard one of your Ask Chuck Dixons before, Chuck, where you actually went into it, where someone had actually kind of sat down and either did it by word or by page, and there was just no contesting it, that you are just the undisputed master at just churning out volume and volume after work. I have had the pleasure of working with Chuck on one occasion. We worked on political satire together during during the Trump presidency, which was definitely one of the items of my career that I will never forget. He is a friend to both reader and artist writer alike. His channel, Ask Chuck Dixon, is fantastic, where once a week he will take you on a trip through the letters pages and answer mail that he gets. And he spins quite the yarn and tells a story in terms of the things that have happened during his career, as well as giving advice and tips to people who might ask. So without further ado, with our panel here, I'm going to dip out because I have another obligation, but I'm going to let the panelists take over and interview Mr. Chuck Dixon and ask him basically all the questions they've been wanting to ask as well. So with that, everyone have a good night, and I will probably join in the chat later on, but y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Take care. He's going to watch his stream burn. Sidelines. So
that he's hopped off.
So as I said before we went live, Chuck, if you want to talk about something, we'll let you take the lead.
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm prolific by page, not by word, because I'm not a very verbose writer. So I think Don McGregor would probably be number one by word.
More than Roy Thomas?
Yeah, even more than Roy Thomas. Yeah. They pay us by the page, not by the word. So I don't know why these guys, rattle on.
All right.
Awesome. So yeah, well, go ahead, Vinkman. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say. I mean, I guess. Well, we'll start off. I mean, I don't. We'll do it. We're gonna do it more as a hangout, more less than my interview. But if you want, if there's questions you have for us or things you just want to talk about instead. Or anybody in the chat has questions, let us know, but be respectful.
Yes, Chuck. Not you, Chuck. We're not.
Chuck, you can say what the heck you want. I don't care.
You say, yeah, that's fine.
Breen, do you have a question at all?
Yeah, I'm going to lead off.
Yeah.
Chuck, I've been reading your stuff, obviously, for 35 plus years. And the thing that probably is still my favorite amongst a lot to choose from is Airboy. Now, I know that was a Golden Age property that fell into the public domain. How did that end up in your hands?
Well, I was visiting Tim Truman, who was doing a lot of work for Eclipse at the time. And we were hanging out in his studio, and it was either Dee Mulaney or Cat Ironwood called and said that they had just found out that Airboy had gone public domain. And Tim's on the phone with him and says, Airboy. And I'm like, Airboy? I just kind of horned in because I knew about Airboy. I'd read Airboy comics and I really dug the character. And so they just said, well, see what you come up with. So Tim and I came up with the general plot line for the first few issues, pitched it, and I ended up being the writer on it.
Who made the decision to go with the son as opposed to the original?
It's like an organic process. I really don't know. We wanted to do it updated. We didn't want to do a golden age, and we didn't want to do a reboot or a new origin or any of that stuff. We wanted to keep as much of the original as possible, and that's when we came up with the idea. I can't remember who it was, and I can't remember who it was who decided to bring back Valkyrie, and she falls in love with her former paramour's son. So, but yeah, so yeah, it early days of something like this. Who knows who thought of what?
I said, anybody in chat that hasn't checked that out, do yourself a favor. It was well worth it.
Yeah, it's 110% enthusiasm on display because it's really my first ongoing comic work. And when you first start, you think, okay, this is probably my only chance. So I threw everything but the kitchen sink into that series, and it was so much fun.
And how old were you when you got that job running that?
I was 32, so I wasn't. I'm not one of these guys who left high school, interned at Marvel, and started writing comics. I did a lot of dead end donkey jobs for a long time before finally getting a break.
So is it just like when you're working jobs, or were you just like writing up stories and scripts, and would you submit them into these publishers and just hope one of them was the lucky one that would get picked? How did that work?
Yeah, I would go to conventions and try to get interviews at the companies. I lived in Philadelphia, so it wasn't that hard to get into New York. And every 6 months I'd work up the nerve again to go in and pitch stuff. But it was tough because I was trying to pitch in the 70s, and they were laying people off, they were canceling titles, but then the 80s came along, and pretty much if you had a pulse and you could operate a typewriter to the degree a chimpanzee could, you could get a job in comics because there was so much sudden demand for new content.
No, yeah. So basically, back then you wrote your stories. You were using typewriter, right? That's basically what you told your.
Well, I never learned to type. I still don't. I'm a hunt and peck guy, but
that's me.
I understand Stephen King never learned to type either. I think he's done okay. So I would write the stories out, and I had a typist. And early on, when I was writing Savage Sword and Airboy, my typist quit because she couldn't keep up with me. And so I went to an office supply store because there were no computer stores then. Mm-hmm. And I said, I need a word processor that I can operate this afternoon without reading the manual. So they gave me this big box, and it had a Brother word processor in it. And that's what I started hunting and pecking on.
I remember using one of those for my high school years back in the early 90s. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, what is this thing?
I remember using one because it was the latest technology at the time. There you go, Black Cat. Yeah, Chuck, you also did Evangeline at Image. At first, correct?
Yeah, I did it for Kamiko, and then a company called Lodestone briefly. And then
I remember. What did you do for Lodestone?
They just reprinted. They reprinted Evangeline 1 and 2. So that's all. I can't even remember anything about that deal. But and then ended up at First.
So did you ever come close to like getting or doing anything other than that at First, or maybe you did? I don't know.
No. My experience at First was Tim Truman suggested I submit stuff to First, and he said you don't have to type anything up or have it typed because he said Mike Barron, he draws his pages, he does sketches and writes in the word balloon. So that's what I did. And I remember Mike Gold was editor in chief, and I called and said, did you get my package? And he said, yes. And he proceeded to scream at me and tell me I was unprofessional and I would never work in the business again.
Wow. I bet you hate his shoe.
Yeah. So I was like, well, but Mike Barron does it this way. Well, you're no Mike Barron.
That's funny. In a sense, it's kind of like, as we always experience, there's always that one person we work under who basically like, we just don't care for, but turns out, you stuck to it and you got opportunity after opportunity because you earned it, and it shows in your work.
I'll never forget. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team.
That's true.
All right.
And
We
he's
do,
still better than LeBron
so
James.
we do got some questions here. First one being from Extreme Movie Show. It's my friend Rob. His thoughts on how well comics translate into movies.
It depends on the movie maker. It depends on how much attention they pay to the comics. You know, when I hear now that the MCU people are saying, "Well, we told all the good stories," no, you didn't. Where's the Search for Galactus? Where's the Mangog saga? Where's the Four Sleepers saga? I mean, all these fantastic stories that they think they know better, and that's the problem. When they get away from the source material and think that they can do it better than the comics, that's where things fall apart. And they fall apart for everybody. We see a decline in viewership for these things.
Yeah, no. That's my big thing. Is they also, in my opinion, they just go through these villains like they give them one movie and they're out. Like there's 5 good Ultron stories you could do if you just kept them around.
Right.
But
They're gonna
they throw them away.
They're planning on doing the Armor Wars without Tony Stark. What?
Well, that's where they lost me when they killed Tony Stark. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm not interested in it anymore.
Well, the characters they want to use now weren't around for any of the stories Chuck just referenced because they've only been around for a handful of years, and they don't have any good stories to tell.
Right.
And that's I think we're as consumers of the MCU, we're all kind of starting to suffer for that.
Well, you know, it's funny. I saw the other day they showed a scene from the first Iron Man where he's like trying on his arm gauntlet and he like blows himself backwards from the force of the thrust, and then they are mirroring. They're doing almost exactly that same shot with Riri Williams. It's almost the same. It's the same pose and everything, the same action. It's just with her instead of Tony. I was like, this is just lazy.
She did steal his armor. Maybe she didn't know how to work it either.
Yeah, well, she stole his scene too. It's like they just copy pasted her in instead of. I was like, guys, this is unoriginal. Like, come up with something new, you know?
Well, I was reading a screenplay recently, and I don't like reading screenplays, but it was based on something I'd written, and they wanted my opinion.
Oh.
And I realized halfway through the screenplay, I had this epiphany. As it's modern screenwriters, they don't write for an audience anymore. They write for the producers.
Yep.
And they have all of this comfort food in there. They have scenes. Oh, I've seen this before, and this is very familiar, and I know this scene. But it's supposed to be a new work. And the screenwriter took everything novel, new, or different out of the original material to do. I mean, they even wrote a training montage. I'm like, what the hell?
Can you say what screenplay that is, or no?
No, I don't want to say early. Because once I say that, then, you know, if nothing happens for years, I have to answer, you know, when's that Captain Potato Salad movie coming out? You know?
Well, next time I see a movie with the training montage, I'm always going to be thinking, is this the one?
It was Rocky IV.
Yeah, but they write for producers, and if you've ever met producers, they're idiots. And I feel comfortable saying that because any Hollywood producer listening to this is saying to himself, "Well, he's not talking about me."
That's one of the things I've noticed with the MCU. Like it's like they write it for people who don't read comic books, and it shows because a lot of their ideas they ignore the source material, and it just ends up being okay. I guess that's cool if you've never actually read the book, you know, because a lot of times we would say that the books are better than the actual shows or movies. You know.
Yeah, well, it's like you got to have this scene. I mean, they literally will say, but you have to have this scene and then this scene, and the movie has to end this way. And I'm like, no, none of that's true.
The limited time strains.
Any of the scenes you said, and the movie doesn't. Every movie doesn't have to end the same way.
Yeah, I hate the excuses. Well, they have a limited time and a budget they can work with. It's like I'm thinking like, especially when I hear about what people say about Marvel, it's like they got money, dude. It's like don't think they don't have money. It's just that they have an agenda, what they want to put out.
Well, the movies haven't improved with the more money they have. I mean, they made Iron Man on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, and look how comic accurate or this close as they went to this Robert Downey Jr. You watch that behind the scenes and said like they want to make it as authentic as they could.
Right.
after that, when it became like Avengers and everything like that, it just out the window.
You know, when they
That's
go
because
nuts
that
with the CGI and all the rest of it, the budget goes out the window.
Yeah.
You know, and you have some visual effects director who's not an artist, who's not a storyteller, and he's really in charge of the movie. You get the kind of forgettable crap that they're all turning out.
And that's the thing. I was like, I'd rather see comic book writers actually writing the scripts for these movies.
Oh, that'll never happen.
I know, right? Can you imagine that? We can't do that. That's on our budget.
I don't know. There are some comic writers out there today. I don't know if I'd want them writing a movie script either.
Well,
There's a
yeah.
few.
I
But
mean,
it would be nice if it was more like manga to anime, where they actually involve the original creators.
Oh
well,
yeah.
Speaking of which, I mean, it's not the original creator, but I mean, I follow Jeremy Adams right now. He's currently writing The Flash, but he's also been writing a lot of the Lego movies for DC, Warner Brothers. He just currently put out the Super Sons, which came out today. I mean, taking a stab in the dark. I mean, I would like to see a movie from you. I mean, writing a screenplay versus somebody who's just there to be like, you know, do the least minimum effort and say, hey, why don't you like this? Well, you're a bastard if you don't like my product, you know? I want someone who actually puts their heart and soul into the project, you know?
Yeah, but you know, there's just a barrier to that, you know.
Yeah, it's sad.
Even in animation, there was a, you know, and we had a great relationship when I was at DC with the Batman animated guys, but we couldn't work for them.
No.
So,
Chuck, I think the best compliment you're going to get tonight from Howler Mouse. Chuck Dixon, the writer, so good I bought 2 issues of Booster Gold because he wrote them. This is a man who would rather have his teeth pulled without Novocaine than read Booster Gold.
Oh, Howler Mouse, no! I take back my comment then. I don't like Booster Gold. How dare you?
All right, so
That's
All right.
awesome, though.
While we're still on the topic of movies, are you more of a Ron Swanson guy or a Tom Hardy guy?
and before we get to that, I got to introduce the guy who's late.
Oh, he made it!
Hey, how's it going, guys? I was waiting for like a final, hey, we're on or something like that. I was working on a video. Sorry. Hello. How's it going? What are we talking about? Hey, Chuck.
yeah, hey, what was the last question?
Do you prefer Ron Swanson or Tom Hardy?
I mean, the Jeep Swenson guy?
Robert
I like the way
Swanson.
Jeep Swenson
not Ron.
looked, but you know, Tom Hardy's obviously the better actor. But,
Yeah, Jeep
Swenson,
Swenson had the body.
you know, rest in peace.
Yeah.
You know, he looked the part.
You weren't a big fan of the dialogue? Floor crush.
Well, they initially had no dialogue, and I remember going up to DC one time, you know, to visit one of my monthly visits, and they were all excited because they've looped in some dialogue for Bane. And back then, the more dialogue your character had, the higher your royalty rate was on the character. So, you know, it's okay. He's got a couple of lines. That means, you know, a few more shekels in the coffer for me.
So
That's nice.
on the topic of actors playing Bane, is there anybody you'd actually want to see play your character that you created?
Yeah, I'm not really good at that casting game thing because, you know, they're actors. They can make them, you know, you could tell me, you know, I don't know, Jason Sudeikis was going to play him. And it's like, okay,
Oh, dear Lord.
I'll wait to see what happens because, you know, I don't want to be one of those guys going, Hugh Jackman, he's going to suck as Wolverine. And then all those people 6 months later going, I love Hugh Jackman.
Ben Affleck never had a doubt because I
Hear
saw
that?
him in Hollywoodland. I said, yeah, he's going to play Batman badass. But what's his name? Who plays
Drax.
Drax, yeah.
Dave Bautista, remember, he wanted to basically play the role.
But he's right. The actor thing, because Tom Hardy, he's not a big guy. I mean, he's
No.
muscular, but he's not a big guy. But he played big.
Yeah, well, you know, when you set the camera down low.
Yeah, the way they did the Fonz in every Tom Cruise movie. Give me just
Yeah.
that.
I
Excuse
mean, you know, a lot of these guys. I mean, you know, Schwarzenegger is not as tall as. I mean, I'm taller than Schwarzenegger, but you know, he looks huge. So
Yeah, I mean, Dave Bautista. I mean, if he wants to play the role, I mean, he's got the build. I guess you can have him on there, and I'd love to have I guess the South American version. I want that version.
yeah, I mean, he's got the chops. I mean, he can act. I mean, I would have no objection to him playing Bane.
So-
Not that they would ever ask me, in my opinion.
Right? But I mean, like, I've always wondered that as far as like the writer, because obviously the writers are kind of like, unless you have the right politics, you're still in the business. Even then, they don't really ask you.
No,
Like,
no, you
say
have,
you're basically writing, and then you're like, yeah, like, here's $5.
Yeah, you could fall in line with their politics. That doesn't mean they're going to hire you. There's a lot of clicks. If you're not in with the in crowd, if you're not a member of the Writers Guild, all this other nonsense.
Which sucks because, like, the people who are in charge are usually the worst people to be in charge. And it shows right now. Look at, because compared to the post-crisis era, 80s of Marvel and DC, they're nothing like it is today.
No.
And if you had 20 minutes and 49 seconds before Venkman brought up post-crisis,
I'm
went
just
over
saying.
my head. I missed it.
I just think that's my era right there is the 80s and 90s Marvel, because they actually wanted to please the reader, because that was their main source of income. Now it just seems like they don't even care about that. The comic books right now, there's no Jim Shooter yelling at people basically like to get back in line. There's no anybody being held accountable. Editors are just a name. That's it, a title.
They're traffickers. They don't dare criticize the talent, because they would be called names.
It's sad because, like I said, I love the world building and stuff. I mean, the fact that we even had, like, back then we had started off with 3 Superman titles, went to 5, and they all kind of worked together. What?
That was back when there was an earnest effort to entertain, and like you said, we listened to the readership. The readers tell us what they want, and we give them more of it. It's the history of comics. It's redundant publishing.
I don't know.
Hey, you like horror comics? We're going to do 70 of them.
Yeah, I don't know when's the last time you looked at a Marvel back when they have like the letters from fans. I'm thinking, like, how many of those are actually people writing in, and not just they're just some guy in the back where he's just writing stuff, and they post it there, make it look like there's people writing in.
Oh well, that's a dirty little secret of comics. If we wanted something brought up that nobody was bringing up in the letters column, we'd put a fake letter in. There's no. I remember when I brought that up when I was at CrossGen, and somebody said, nobody's ever mentioned this. Well, let's just write a letter and insert it. They were horrified. They didn't realize that this would actually happen. It's like that's when Santa Claus was dead.
Flo and Stan did that to get everything started in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were writing different letters and everything. And why not?
So much of what you see is manufactured. Trust me, your major newspapers, a lot of those letters are commissioned.
How can you get that job?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Right.
Can you write fake letters for us? Yes.
Tying in. Okay, so our next question is from Ed Brewer. He's asking, is there a work or character that you're especially proud of?
Oh man, I've been at this for 35 years. There's lots of stuff I'm proud of.
Is there one, like you said, like it's your favorite time working on something as far as your character?
Oh man, it's hard to say. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, and it is a cliche, but I enjoy what I'm working on while I'm working on it. I mean, I got as big a kick working on SpongeBob SquarePants as I did working on Nightwing. I mean, because I just love the medium. I love the challenge of trying to entertain readers. This crazy medium of telling a story in sequential static pictures. I mean, it just fascinates me endlessly. So I've enjoyed all of it. Maybe not the Robert Jordan adaptations, but all the rest of it I enjoyed.
Had a conversation with George Perez. I was lucky enough to meet him at a comic book shop once, and he talked to, because I had a hard time of what was going on with Donna Troy. And he pointed out, he says, well, our job is we tend to go from one comic to another. So we don't get as attached, or at least, of course, he could only really speak to his own. But he mentioned how it doesn't get as attached to stories and characters while you're working on them, as you said, like really intense. But then you have to let it go because you have no idea what's coming next. Do you ever experience that?
Yeah, I mean, people say, what do you think about what's going on with Robin now? It's like, I don't look at it. It's like watching your children go off with the new dad. I mean, why would I do that?
Yeah, you created.
it was never mine. You know, it belonged to DC Comics. I'm a steward for a while, and then I got to let it go.
Wow. And of course, us fanboys, we're just clinged. We're attached to it. These, which I guess would pay into something maybe to direct what RDV was asking. You know, what's your favorite time? We get emotionally attached because these characters come to us at certain periods of our lives. When we're younger, most definitely, which can create this, of course, lifelong attachments for people like myself and Eric Brain, who've got a little bit more salt in our beards than I know you're timeless, Eric. I'm talking about myself, yeah.
I got a little bit,
but it was there, and I guess that I would kind of adjust RDV's question a little bit. Was there ever a time where you're like emotionally attached to the story? I guess that would be a question to ask. Or did you experience it as a fan?
Well, yeah, as a fan, yeah. I mean, I was so into Spider-Man when I was a kid. You know, it was like a second life, those comics. But yeah, I mean, again, I generally don't take an assignment unless I know I can emotionally invest myself in the characters. I'm all about being earnest with this stuff. I'm not faking it here. I mean, if I've turned down work where it's like I just really don't like that character, and it will show in the work. So,
which of course leads us to ask, okay, what character?
I've never gotten near anything X-Men related. I just don't relate to them. I think they're a bunch of whiners. But I remember, you know, I did a little bit of children's book work before I got into comics full time, and I remember writing a Raggedy Ann and Andy story, and I was tearing up because I was so involved with the characters.
That being said, another follow-up question: is there anything that you passed up or regret not having a chance, or was never offered a chance to write? Did you would have loved to write back then?
Well, yeah, I always said I wish I could have had a decent run on Fantastic Four a couple of years, but that was never going to happen because I was never a mainstream Marvel guy. I was never going to be offered that title. But you know, I wish I had never said yes to Rob Liefeld and the Captain America thing, because that was just a complete waste of my time, and I didn't get any money for it. So,
did anybody in the office ever joke about how he drew feet behind his back?
Oh yeah. There was very little respect. There was a lot of Rob Liefeld stories. I won't repeat any of them.
Which of course is
maybe
now
when we're off the air, I'll tell you a couple.
That is something. So you said you didn't get any money for it. You're being figurative, right? I mean,
I got no money.
Like zero.
I didn't voucher for it. I didn't want my name on it.
Oh, okay.
No.
That's understandable. I don't remember it too much when it was out, but
there's
just
nothing
by
to
looking
remember.
at it, yeah.
It was just awful.
We apologize to anybody who actually bought those and enjoyed those.
Hey, oh, by the way, and if they show up in my auction, they're awesome. Okay.
I hate to part with these.
Yes. Chuck Dixon told me himself. I'm gone.
We do have another question from the chat. Thank you for waiting, Ty. Anything Chuck can tell us about Jason Todd year 1 or Batgirl year 2?
Yeah, we had proposed Jason Todd year 1. I don't remember any of the hooks or what we were going to do with it. And yeah, we did. Scott Beatty and I did want to do a Batgirl year 1. We want to do a lot of year 1s. I wanted to do a Green Arrow year 1, an Oliver Queen year 1. You know, we thought that DC. We try to talk DC and have like a whole bookshelf of these things, because they're basically 101 for the characters. We got a lot of resistance. When we first did Robin year 1, we talked to the marketing people, and of course they were clueless. They have no idea what to do. And I said, well, compare it favorably to Batman year 1. And they were like appalled that I would even suggest that something that I had done was close to Batman year 1. I said, I don't care how you feel about this book, market it like it's as good as Batman.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, and in my opinion, it is as good as Batman year 1.
It's
It has the advantage also of actually being a Robin story rather than a Commissioner Gordon story. So
I like that the fact that they still don't know what to do with marketing.
no.
Well, look at Stan Lee. Stan Lee would tell you this is the greatest comic book since Will Shakespeare put pen to paper. And obviously, I don't think he believes that the comic book was as good as freaking Romeo and Juliet. But you get that out there. You get kids excited for it. That you're right.
Well, the problem with comics is they've never known how to market themselves. The money's always found them. I mean, trust me, back in 1930, whatever, they were sitting around wondering where were the returns on action number one? You know, nobody's returned any of them. What happened? You know, it's not until later they realize, hey, it might have been this Superman character. Yeah, hey, they might have liked this character. Let's have some more of that.
I always thought it was weird that comic books as a product had never truly been marketed. It's like, especially say like right now, you've got advertisements at the beginning of damn near of the movies in damn near every theater across the country. Why are there not in Batman this story's coming out, or in you've got the audience coming up there. You've got people who are interested in stories. Why not say, hey, why not try our stories in another medium? But for as long as I've been reading them, the only advertisements I really have seen is either in the comic shop as far as like posters or standees, or it's been advertisements in the books itself. They've never tried to step outside of the medium itself to advertise. Very rarely.
Yeah, I preached this same sermon, which made me really, really unpopular at both Marvel and DC because they would miss every opportunity. Back in the 80s, they put a little bit of a thing about an issue of G.I. Joe. You know, they advertise a comic. It's like a 10-second little thing at the tail end of an ad for a toy, right? And they ran it once. And I knew retailers at the time who said, my phone was ringing as I was unlocking the door to my store, and it never stopped ringing all day long. And I don't know how many times they went back to print on that issue of G.I. Joe.
And Batman 89 told the comic book industry that for at least a little bit, those movies would have an effect on the audience itself. Put the entertainment there. Batman 89, I understand, was a phenomenon, but still put something in front of those movies to say, go check out the comic.
Batman Returns actually caused our sales to go down.
Really?
Yeah, because parents were so appalled. They'd taken kids to see this movie, and it's really not a movie for kids.
No.
And that's why we got Joel Schumacher.
Yeah,
Danny
and so
DeVito
parents,
still
I
gives
mean,
me
you know, I want a
nightmares.
Batman comic. No, I'm not buying you that trash.
Yeah, we didn't watch a lot of Danny DeVito in my house for a little bit after that.
But that turns to a situation that comic books, American comic books anyway, have been facing since the beginning. I don't know if you've done anything or at least spoken up about it, is the fact that, yes, a lot of people, even still today, think comic books are only for kids.
Yeah, but I think we've left some of that behind. We've left some of that behind because there was a short, brief period in the early 90s where comics were actually cool, but that was brief. But I think now we're torn between they're for kids or they're for hipster eggheads, and there's no in between, or they're for, overage geeks like us.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they're not, the at the center of pop culture the way they were once. They're not easily available. They're not prevalent. You don't go to the barbershop and see a stack of comics.
That's true.
That's the sad thing.
Yeah,
I don't go to a barbershop.
You could make the argument that the worst thing that ever happened to the comic book was when everybody learned who the comic book characters were.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I said that. Yeah, they love them in the movies. They love them on the cartoons. They love them in the video games. But
I think it's a matter that they get as much Spider-Man as they want in the movies and video games, and they really have no desire. When the only place you could get Spider-Man was a comic book.
Yeah.
well,
That's where you have to go.
Yeah, that's a thing we've gone back and forth on for the last couple of years. It's if you're older like us and you started out with the printed page and you can remember the Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man show, you embraced this, the live action, thought, man, I never thought we'd see this. But if you started out with these characters in video games or in live action, getting them interested in the printed page is a tough
Right.
sell.
Right. Exactly. But look at how well manga does. So
True.
it's
Yeah.
it's not they've ever since the 70s, the publishers use it as an excuse. The video games are killing us. And then in the 90s, when video games were growing in popularity, our sales were increasing. So it's like, it's not a zero-sum game. We're not tied to all this other stuff. Just put out good product that the readers care about.
My only
And,
complaint,
they'll find it.
my only complaint now was the current Spider-Man games out right now being being written better than actual books. So I grew up, reading. My first book I purchased was basically like one of the Amazing Spider-Mans, epic collections, back in the day, early 90s. I think it was early 2000s. I started because I didn't get comics until later on, but I read off and basically read through Stan's run all the way up to the 90s and stuff, and I so when it came to this stuff, it's like current day, even I'd say I've probably heard this a lot of time from people say One More Day was like the biggest FU to anybody who's a fan of Spider-Man, and it just put a bad taste in my mouth to the point where I actually stopped buying Marvel. For a while, I was even buying comic books. I ventured going over into more DC independent stuff, and now I'm going back into a lot of the older stuff. I've been reading. I've been loving the Catwoman. I started off with Mary Jo Duffy, then I went into yours, and I could see a little bit of difference more. And like I said, like it's for the people who are a fan of Mary Jo Duffy's Catwoman book, and then seeing you come on the title, I'm sure people are like, if they don't know who we are, it's always a fear when someone else takes over a title. Okay, if you really like what's going on, is this person gonna bastardize this, or are they gonna improve it? And I gotta say, I'm always happy when a writer actually keeps the same feeling but adds more suspense to it. Like I was reading your Catwoman stuff, like I'm getting like the James Bond stuff and feeling going through some of these issues. And I gotta say, I'm at the point where I've learned I follow the writer more so than I follow the comic book character, because if I like the way someone writes, what compels me, I want to read more. Okay, I want to see what that person's take on this character, and sadly, it's the point where Marvel and DC don't really realize that anymore, but they have very few writers that actually can get me, I guess, older readers, to actually want to stick, with that character and read more stuff. It's like I said, I appreciate the 90s and the early 80s stuff. I'm appreciating that more and more as I get older, because when you put more effort into pleasing the fans, why would I waste my money on stuff where they don't even care about us, And then you got I would say real quickly, the whole age of social media, it's really kind of like pissed off a lot of people, and I don't think social media ever should have existed. I was growing up, as far as what they're allowed to say and what they can't say, but Marvel and DC don't care anymore. It used to be where you basically wanted to look good and not yelling at your fans, but now with social media, they don't care.
Yeah, you used to see creators yelling at their fans only at conventions. Now they
John Byrne.
I was about, you beat me to it. The Legend of John Byrne, is any of that real?
Yeah, he's a prickly pear.
Okay.
I put Chris Claremont in that camp too. I've seen him yell at fans.
Wow.
Oh wow.
He came off so gentle in that documentary they made of him. Are you sure?
My philosophy was always, if I was ever felt that pissy, I just stay home. Why take it out on people that are buying your stuff?
I always thought with John Byrne, John Byrne didn't dislike you because you were a Republican or a Democrat. He disliked you because you were standing in front of him.
You have the audacity of not being John Byrne. I got a question. It's something I'm curious about. One of the better non-Batman books you are attached to and you wrote was the Nom. and yet I know you were probably about what 12, 14 maybe when the war was over. Did you read up on it? Did you? I mean, like, how would you approach something like that?
Well, I was a little older than that. I was number 3 in the draft lottery when
Really?
they ended the draft. I mean, I went for my physical and all
Yeah.
the rest of it, and I thought I was going. And yeah, I mean that's as close as I got. But then they ended the draft lottery, and I went on to do whatever I was doing. But I mean, you read about the war. I met a lot of guys coming back. Guys were coming back to the neighborhood, from being over there. So I heard a lot of secondhand stuff, and I've always pestered vets for questions, even since I was a little kid, pestering, my friends' dads and stuff. What'd you do in the war?
Yeah.
So, World War II vets, and so when it came along, that they asked me to do the nom. I said I didn't serve, and Doug Murray served. I'm replacing a guy who served.
Yeah.
And so they said, well, talk to Larry Hama about it, because Larry Hama was there. He was a combat vet. See how he feels about you writing it. And Larry said, you'll do the homework. I know you'll do the homework. And he said, don't worry about that you weren't there. He says, we'll hook you up with all kinds of vets to talk to if you have any questions, which they did. I talked to dozens of guys.
Did you use any personal stories?
Somewhat. It's funny. I recently completed a new graphic novel set in Vietnam, in which I used all of the stories that would not have passed the code to be in.
The reason why I was asking is because my dad, God bless him, he's going through the early stages of Alzheimer's. He's got and his memory is going. So I've been jotting down all the stories he told me, and I kind of want to make my own based on what he's told me. And I realized that, of course, though, I don't have Ted Mosby's memory and from How I Met Your Mother, where you could tell all the dialogue. So I decided to make it his stories through my eyes, because that's all I can remember. But it is something when you're hearing them tell those stories. It's like, do you almost feel like you're exploiting, or is it like an homage at that point?
Well, they've willingly shared the story. I mean, they understood that I was asking these questions because, I'm doing a comic book about it, and I want to get it right, and they want you to get it right too.
Well, and also I think creatively, this is the time to return to the Vietnam War, because they're dying off. My dad's in his 70s. They're not going to be around forever and a day. I remember 10 years ago, I believe, I could be off on a few years, but I think 10 years ago we lost the last World War II vet.
World War I vet.
Oh, yes, there you go. But it's getting to the point. We should tell the stories. We got to keep those tales alive, especially when it comes to a war that was so polarizing. Such as the Vietnam War.
That's the other thing I hate to hear. It was so polarizing, and there's this sort of like weird through the looking glass view of what the American public's reaction to the Vietnam War was.
Yeah,
and it wasn't that. We didn't all overnight become hippies and start singing.
No. But my dad points that out too. My dad said that he would have been a hippie if he didn't go, but he felt it was his duty. He was called. What gives him the right to turn it down? And one of the things he said to me, and freaking copyright motherfucker. Anyway, he's actually said, I want this line. He said, we were sitting down, and he says, I never knew I would be good at it. And I was like, war? And he goes, no, killing. And that just blew my mind, because he told me he was into Bob Dylan, and he went to San Francisco. He would have been a hippie without the war. And after he was in the war, he wanted to go career Army. He just learned he was good at doing that. So I do, when I hear the stories from him, I get both sides of it. Like he
Right.
hates when people say we lost Vietnam. He says, bullshit, we were never allowed to fight it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's, we were aware of that, because we knew guys coming back, and they would
Mhm.
tell us that the rules of engagement were ridiculous, that we weren't given a chance.
Yep.
It wasn't World War II, and
Yeah.
that's the pity of it is, we celebrate the World War II vets, greatest generation, and everything else, but man, they were just told to go at it, and they won that war, by sheer will. And the guys in Vietnam, I would hear over and over again, they just won't let us fight it.
Yep. And I got to say to those listening in, if you get a chance, search for them, check out the Nam. It's a great book. There is no bad run of the Nam, in my opinion.
No,
Anyway.
no.
Yeah.
Well, the other book he wrote that was Team 7,
Yeah.
Image, which I believe was shortly afterwards, right, or right around the same time.
Yeah, it was it was a few years later. It was a few years later.
Were you excited to basically to get that job writing more of those stories again, or or is it like at that point you're like, it was just, obviously you put your heart and soul into everything you do, so basically Team 7 was there limitations of what you could and could not write?
No, the only limitations on Team 7 was it was early Image stuff, so the characters, they didn't have distinct personalities or voices or anything else. And that was the hardest part of writing that, was I basically had to create a lot of that stuff. And they gave me free hand to do so. They mostly wanted me on it because they knew, again, I do the homework on the military stuff, that it would read as believable. Because I would put the time into the dialogue and technology and all that stuff. Jim Lee told me, he says, we wanted you because you're like the Tom Clancy of comics. And I said, well, I'll try and take that as a compliment.
All right, so we do have another question. This is from Graphic Man. Check out his channel. This guy has a lot of older comic books, and Eric Breen is a fellow fossils, as they call themselves, older every Wednesday night. But his question is, working on Conan, was it fun?
Oh yeah, I loved Conan. I discovered Conan when I was like 14. Raging hormones, perfect time to find Conan. And when I started working with Larry Hama on the Savage Tales book, when he realized that I was reliable, he gave me the Cull backups in Savage Sword. So I just kept pitching. I kept pitching Conan lead features, and he would get angry at me. I have a Conan writer. I'm like, okay, and I learned never to say, "Well, I'm better than him." I didn't say that. But I kept pitching and pitching and pitching. And finally, he had me come up for lunch, which is something Larry never did, have you come up for lunch. And at lunch, he's talking to me about Conan, blah, this, that, and the other thing. And he ends lunch with, describe Conan in one word. And I was ready for this. And I said, cruelty. And he turned to his assistant editor and said, Chuck's our new regular Savage Sword of Conan. And that's when I was able to come home and tell my fiance we can set a date. I'm a full-time comic book writer now. I got 50 pages a month guaranteed for the next year.
Wow.
And, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And Larry and I were so on the same page, because he told me, he said, I want you to read Lord Dunsany and I want you to read Karl Barks for Savage Sword. And I said, I've already thought of that.
And so, following up with Conan, did you read a lot of the Edward Rice Burroughs stuff?
Oh yeah. I was way into all that stuff. Tarzan, Mars, Pellucidar. I've read all that stuff.
So that my follow-up question is that if you noticed that Dan Jurgens got a Tarzan book on there, would you ever work for Dynamite on a book like that?
Yeah, I don't know about Dynamite. Their page rates suck.
Oh, really?
And I wrote 6 Navy SEAL novels for them, and we had a bit of an argument over royalties. So I don't think I'd ever go back to
is there any public domain characters you want to write?
Well, I still do Airboy now and again. I can't think. Well, I have a Conan novel coming out because he's gone public domain.
Cool.
So,
That's right. Yeah, he
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
in fact, I just completed a second one. So there's 2 in the can.
And how long does it take for you to complete those little novels?
And they are little novels. I keep them to Howard's length. They're like 30 2,000 words, I think, short novels. They're surprisingly fast. I finished the first one in a month, which is fast for me. If I have a 2,000 word day, that's a good day.
All right.
But writing in that style was a blast because it's the most purple I've ever written. I tried to be as Howard as I could be.
And I've noticed that I think it's a Blaze that's been doing none of the Crimean stuff based off of his works.
Yeah,
So
they're reprinting the European stuff. Yeah,
that's been kind of cool to read though, see that stuff, versus like some of the other stuff. It's different.
Yeah. I love the idea that it's a different team on every one.
True. Yeah. So you're getting, and almost everyone I've read of them, I haven't been disappointed though. I gotta say.
No, they've been a lot. I haven't. I have them all in French, which I can't read.
Oh.
but I know the stories, so I'm able to follow them.
That's cool. And that's cool.
The French albums because they're a lot bigger than the American albums. They're these super-sized volumes.
Well, speaking of France, do you have any? Do you know of any of your works that have actually blown up over there? Like,
I'm always in print in Europe, which gripes me. All my DC stuff is constantly, it's always in print in France, Spain, Italy, Germany. When I was on Detective Comics sold as well in Italy, just Italy alone, as it did here in the United States.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, which gripes me because DC stopped paying international royalty rates, which I talk about it all the time, but I can't get any freelancers to line up beside me and say, where are the international royalties? It's in our contracts. Why aren't we being paid them anymore? I think they stopped paying them to hope we wouldn't notice. But freelancers are a cowardly lot. They think if I speak up, they'll never hire me again. Well, I haven't hired you in 10 years, dummy. Get your royalties.
I think Batman said that.
That's legit.
All right. Robert's asking, are you gonna write any more Iron Ghost books?
Yeah, I'm working with a brand new company called Spin Rack, which we're just getting up and getting started. And one of the guys there is a super Iron Ghost fan, and he wants me to do more stuff. So, yeah, I'll be getting the band back together, Sergio Cariello and me, and do some more Iron Ghost because I love that character.
But I like that too. When you see the original, Marvel's been doing this. I guess they realize that bringing back original writers will get more people, original readers, to stay in the business. And as far as reading stuff, I've noticed that too. And the sad part about that is they bringing back original writers for their writing new stories to take place in between their runs.
Yeah,
and those are better than the new writers putting out the crap. It's like,
well, there's a drop in craft in comics that's very deep.
So I'm cool. I think it's kind of cool to see Peter David continuing his work, but but I would wish that Peter David was getting actually paid more than what they're paying him. They're probably paying him pennies, whatever.
I don't know. I don't know anything about the page rates there anymore. I know they've dropped them, but you would think they would start thinking in terms of event publishing. We're going to bring back this former master on whatever his signature title and make a big deal out of that.
Right. Obviously, I mean, if DC was smart, they'd hire you back and have you put you back on some Batman.
Well, they're not smart, so. and the thing is, I mean, my name is an anathema there. I've had more than one person tell me that when your name comes up, it's like, stop talking about that guy or you're fired. So.
Dang.
So who did you kick in the balls?
I don't know. Gary Quapis says that I probably remind them of all the guys who beat them up in the playground. But I'm not a bully, I'm just big. He says, when they see you looming in their doorway, you frighten them. So,
it's probably because you outright most of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, Larry Hama told me, he told me this just a few years ago. He said, your stories make sense, your characters are likable, and you hand your work in on time. And they never forgave you for that.
Gee, that used to be a mark of a good worker.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, something
right.
Like that.
One of the reasons why they took
was my editor on Punisher War Journal, and when Gary Quapis and I were on it, we were sailing on that book, and he handed a completed issue in 90 days ahead of deadline. and the rest of the editors wouldn't speak to him for a month.
Wow.
Hendricks asked a question that actually I wanted.
Well, yeah, I was just trying to get through them. There's so many coming in.
Yeah, but just in case we run out of time,
sure.
Chuck, if someone ever did a documentary on you, a la like the Chris Claremont one, who would you like to have speak on your behalf in the documentary?
Speak on my behalf?
Yeah, like they ask other pros and they give their anecdotes.
Like,
and
the Simonsons and Nisente were really heavy in.
Yeah, well, Larry Hama certainly. I mentioned Gary Quapis, Graham Nolan, Sergio Cariello. Friends. People that I've worked with a lot. Frequent collaborators who, know what it was like to work with me.
Interesting question.
Another question we got here from Horror Mouse. I'm not sure if we already talked this one. This is if you'd run Punisher different, would Marvel admitted that he's a serial killer villain?
But what? I'm sorry. What?
He's if you had written Punisher differently, would Marvel?
Would he have written Punisher different?
Would Chuck have written Punisher different if Marvel would have admitted he's a serial killer villain?
No, because I always wrote him as the villain in his own book. I mean, he makes all his own problems. He's not a nice guy.
The guy wore blackface.
And I that's not my take on him. I took that from Mike Baron. Because Mike Baron really brought out the fact that this guy is just a sociopath. Not a psychopath, but a sociopath. He just uses people to his own ends, even though his ends are, in his mind, noble.
All right. Ash on Comics asks, who are some of your favorite writers to read for enjoyment?
Boy, there's so many. A favorite of mine is always Donald E. Westlake. Used to write under Richard Stark. Comic people are probably familiar with Darwin Cook's adaptation of his Parker novels. He's a big favorite. Douglas Riemann, he writes nautical adventure stories. I mean, there's just lots of guys. But I'm a big P.G. Woodhouse fan. And we mentioned Burroughs, we mentioned Howard. So, yeah, I'm pretty eclectic on the reading thing. I'm all over the map.
Was there ever advice given to read outside of comics? Because I get the feeling that modern day comic book writers for the big two definitely, they seem to have been raised on comic books rather than have a wider array of stories told to them.
Well, I mean, the guys I met who were into the writing end, Denny O'Neil, Archie Goodwin, they would feel you out. They would ask you, have you read this guy? Have you read that guy? And I was pretty well read, at least, when it comes to like pulp and detective fiction and science fiction and stuff like that. I mean, I still am a voracious reader. So I was able to get into like deep conversations with Denny about the differences between Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler and why he hated Jim Thompson's novels and I loved them. So, but most of the editors were comic book guys beginning to end. They didn't. I mean, Alan Moore pointed it out. Alan Moore said that his trick, his secret, his success to comics is that he brought in tropes and plot lines and things that were, from movies and novels that weren't in comics. He was coming at it as so different. And that's a lot of when I was trying to get into comics, I was seeing that comics were like incestuous. They were feeding off of themselves.
Yeah, that's happening now to the point where DC Comics has been producing a book that's been insulting past writers and fans. I mean, literally, they look and you're an ist, you're an ism, and so forth and so on. If it's in the comic book, these are and they go on to quote things that should only be known to the characters of the comic are now being known by everybody. It's gotten bad, Chuck.
Yeah, well, it's that's a problem when it's not. When they make them that self-aware. When it's not earnest work. It's not earnest work.
That whole saying, the good old days weren't always good. They're a hell of a lot better. I think we've gotten to a point where the comic book, the modern big two, definitely. I forgive independence because that's your own creature. Go on. But the modern big two have gotten to the point where I can't remember bad comics that were as bad as the mid comics today.
Well, that's craft. I mean, you could pick up a comic by, a B-level writer and a C-level artist back then, and at least they knew things about panel progression and balloon placement and, establishment panels, things like that. I mean, at least it was somewhat entertaining if you had nothing else to read.
Okay,
but now there's nothing. There's nothing that's worth looking at from the big two. Or there may be some bright spots, but frankly, I don't stay that informed about it.
We're getting some chats says, please let Dixon talk. We don't hear much.
Yeah, that was a while back. I shut up. Sorry, guys. I've been letting him. Yeah.
I haven't noticed. Because I've been going through. I'm like, wow, they're getting unruly. They're like, just let Dixon
you're
talk.
Way behind, dude.
Well, I'm going through questions as we're getting there.
I know it happens. I do the same thing.
It still applies. Let the man talk. He's here for one night only.
There you go, man. As a matter of fact, the floor is yours. Go.
But I need some guidance here.
Of course.
I know, right?
You just put them out there and let them fly blind.
You just said, you're invited. Now just talk.
So another person asked, basically, thoughts on digital. I know that a lot of the creator, former, basically, writers like yourself are basically not involved with the big two anymore, are doing a lot of Indiegogo and Kickstarter stuff. So how is that working out for you? Obviously, you're still writing stuff. So, I mean, I'll let you talk about it.
I'm as busy as I've ever been, between writing novels and doing, crowdfunder. And like I said, I'm involved with this new company, Spin Rack. I'm like 1990s busy. I mean, for a while there, when I left CrossGen, I was in the wilderness. I didn't have a lot of work, but that hasn't been true for a long time. I mean, I'm in demand in the crowdfunding thing.
Are you getting 1990s rich?
I'll say, hey, I can't get to that for a couple of months, that's a good busy.
Yeah, no, definitely.
You actually got one going on right now. It's actually a Hunter Ninja Bear.
Yeah, we're in Indigogo now. We did well on Kickstarter. Now we're offering on Indiegogo. So if you missed it on Kickstarter, here's your chance. $30 for a 360-page historical epic with gorgeous artwork.
Thank you for making it worth it. I've seen too many 40-page $40.
Actually, I forgot it. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
I like that shit, RDV.
Yeah. This isn't a 5-minute read. You got to dedicate a day or two to it.
Yeah. It takes a while to get through. I like books like that. I like a book that you can actually like sit in and you can just take your time and go through it. This has been a really awesome read so far. I've been liking it.
So here's a question, because you brought up your 90s busy. Are you getting 90s rich?
No. The 90s money isn't there. Because the 90s money was crazy.
Yeah, I know from what I read, DC wasn't as big as Marvel, of course, at the time. You were mostly a DC guy, but still, what was going on? Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, I just run to the mailbox because you never knew what was coming. You never knew how big the check was going to be. They would tell you, hey, this sold big, and then you'd see the check. I was like, holy crap. I mean, I'll tell you a story. When Flint Henry and I did Law Dog for Epic, they sent the royalty check for issue 1 and 2 together. And issue 1 was $10,000 and issue 2 was, I think, like $260 because the sales had fallen off.
Yeah.
And I called Flint and I said, get down to your mailbox. And he had a phone that you could walk around with.
That's amazing.
He went down to the lobby of his apartment building and he opened it up and I could hear him go when he sees the 10,000, and then he said a bad word when he saw the second check. And he started calling Marvel all kinds of names. And I said, look at the bright side. They didn't make you wait 30 days for the second check. So you got your high and your low all in one shot.
Well, actually, you can see that as a positive, because if you went
Exactly.
off, oh well, the first issue is a 10,000, so the second one might be a 7, a 6.
Right.
You go out, you buy that new pool, find out you only got 260. It's like,
Yeah, and that's happened over and over again to guys. I'm going to buy a motorcycle, and then the next month they're like, I can't eat. I have no food.
But you have that really nice
my
motorcycle.
wife and I called our second house the house that Robin built. So, I mean, the money was fantastic.
oh, and by the way, thank you very much. Robin was a great series. I loved it. Basically, I actually was looking through okay, just remind yourself, what did Chuck do as far as Batman and so forth? I wanted, because I'm very bad about forgetting the things, but
Sure.
Holy crap. Look, I don't know if I could say your run was as epic as the O'Neill Adams days, but holy crap, they weren't they? I mean, if we're being honest, you had Contagion in there, you've got the Cataclysm, you've got the No Man's Land, which in my opinion is the greatest Batman story ever told.
I'll second that. I love No Man's Land. That was the first big Batman event that I think I ever read. Was No Man's Land.
I'm interested to hear if my colleague there, Breen, would jump in and be brave enough to say this. But I got to tell you, with all those epic freaking stories,
it was a great time. It was a great time. And we had Denny O'Neil, we had Archie Goodwin as editors.
Mm-hmm.
Denny hired a really talented group of associate editors, and we were all into it. We were living, breathing, and eating Batman for all those years, and it was a great time. We were masters of the universe as far as that stuff, and it paid off. The royalties were fantastic, sales were terrific, fan reaction was amazing. It was a great time.
I gotta say, whenever we hired you to entertain us, you entertained us. Thank you very much for that. All right.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a second of labor in it. I loved all of it. It was so much fun. I just couldn't believe I was doing it. I mean, I got giddy every time I would type Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin. I'm running Batman and Robin.
And you're welcome for all the royalties, because I did buy all of the floppy copies of No Man's Land. I bought the I bought the freaking audio book. And and all of the trades twice. So wow. Yeah. You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, we kept making you buy that stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah, that was back when DC actually, back when any companies actually had events that actually were worth reading. It just seems like today, you look at Marvel in the past 10, 12 years, world-changing event every 6 months. What? It's the point where it's just like, you can tell it's I think it was Civil War had like over 250 tie-ins for Marvel.
Denny O'Neil called them stunts, and he said, we don't ever want to do a stunt. We want our crossovers to be events.
You have to have them mean something.
Yeah. That's the toughest part. That's the toughest part of doing it, because Mike Carlin called it the illusion of change. You have to have this thing happen, but it can't alter the series forever. But it has to make you believe. I mean, we really wanted you to believe that Bruce Wayne was not coming back.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was the story, because with Azrael, there seemed a bit of permanence. I mean, it lasted, a year before?
And it would have lasted longer, except readers hated that character. And sales began to fall off, because he was an a-hole, but that's what we were writing him to be.
Looking over at Marvel, they had Ben Reilly as the new Spider-Man.
Yeah.
People were hating that too. It's like you kind of like, and that's the thing about Marvel and DC. They kind of look at each other and like, what? Let's not do that. But nowadays, let's do that.
Yeah.
2 years later.
Well, it goes into the whole thing. The nowadays we're wrong for not liking it, and you guys would go, "Oh, okay, we're in the wrong direction. Obviously, fans don't like this. Let's pivot."
Yeah. I mean, we always thought the fans knew best. I mean, you have to listen to them. Otherwise, that way lies ruin. I can't tell you how many comic book companies I've seen bite the dust because they just refuse to believe what the readers were telling them. We like this, we don't like that. Well, okay, we're going to give you more of what you like.
I was going to say, one of the biggest complaints that people have now in comics is, I got to buy all these tie-in issues. If they've been reading 30 years ago, you wanted to buy all the
Yeah.
tie-in issues.
Well, they were
because
worth the read back then.
There wasn't a wasted book in a. You can go through all 7 volumes of No Man's Land or however many it is. There's not really a skippable book, and that's what made those kind of events so compelling.
Well, the thing is that we wrote them so there wasn't a skippable book. We also wrote them so that you got a bang out of every book. It wasn't like, oh, this is just part 2, wait for part 3. No, part 2 had to be awesome too.
Yeah.
You know, every part of it had to be. I mean, we went by this dictum that every comic should be written as if it's someone's first comic, even if it's in the middle of a run, in the middle of a massive company-wide crossover. It has to be engaging from page 1, and that's the thing we worked on. And I think that's what's missing now. These people don't know how to open a story to save their lives, let alone how to end a story or continue a story.
Yeah, I'm almost at the end of No Man's Land, but every story in there, like, it was actually worth the money collecting and reading these. The introduction of Cassandra Cain as Batgirl, you know, and the Oracle, the whole tip with that, you know, she feels like being replaced. Everything was worth it. So I appreciate you and everyone else working with you to actually realize, you know what, hey, we're writing this because we're fans ourselves, but also we want to treat our fans with respect as well, you know.
Yeah, and that's also the mortal fear I have of boring people. You know, you want the stuff to be. Comics are an immediate experience. Every page, every panel has to delight, engage, horrify, something. You have to get some kind of emotional reaction.
Yeah, and you
don't opera. The beginning of the downfall was when writers started saying, "Well, I'm writing for the trade."
Oh,
We had a lot of discussions on what that meant. What does writing for the trade means? Well, it doesn't mean you abandon the individual issue as just part of a whole. Every issue has to have some oomph to it. But so many guys were like, well, I'm saving the good stuff for the end of the story, like it's a feature film. And it's like, no, that's not what writing for the trade means.
I remember we had Mike Barron on I Love Comics the other year, and he said, he's like, you know, his biggest fear was basically repeating himself. He didn't want to, you know, he wanted to keep creating the big new thing, because otherwise, like, fans are like, well, I read this before. Okay, you know, you just want to keep challenging yourself as a writer too, you know.
But now that's all they do. You have the soft reboot, and it just tells the same story over again that we've seen before, but done with less craft and, you know, inferior writing and inferior art.
Yeah,
I look at the new writers like Ram V. He's actually trying to put effort into it, and then especially on Catwoman, I was enjoying that. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, and then all of a sudden they put Teenie Howard on there. It's like, okay, I'll just erase everything that happened beforehand. It's just like Bendis would do that too. Bendis would come in, he would break everything, you know, and say, like, we're starting over.
Yeah, see, I've taken over a lot of titles, or taken on titles that were associated with other writers, and I never felt the need to make it my own or break what they did before. People like this. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep what they like about it. You know, maybe add some stuff, and eventually my own personality will emerge over time. But generally, I want to keep, you know, this title the way the reader expects it to be.
Find the voice of the character, not put your voice into the character.
Well, yeah.
Inserting yourself into the character.
There you go, guys. The same thing I've been saying for 5 freaking years. Chuck Dixon approved. You heard that right there. Okay.
We do have a question from Marania asking, who is your favorite artist you've worked with, and why you like them more than the other people? Pretty much.
Boy, that's a hard one. I work with so many guys. My most frequent collaborator, Gary Quapis. My second most frequent collaborator, Graham Nolan. I mean, Sergio Cariello. I've gotten work with guys I've idolized: Russ Heath, John Buscema, John Severin. You know, Joe Kubert. I mean, you know, just it's hard to pick one guy.
Who was the worst to work with?
No, that's
Rob Liefeld.
I didn't really work with him, did I? Because once I saw those pages, it's like, I'm out of here. I don't want to be associated. I won't say a name, but I worked with a guy on a title one time, and the story was about an alien. It was a superhero story, but it involved this horrifying, nasty alien. And the guy didn't seem to understand that every time you do the alien, it had to be the same alien. So every time the alien appeared, he looked completely different. It's like there was no continuity. The
Oh,
story
no.
was a mess. It was impossible to understand. And they sent it to me and said, can you fix it and rewrite it? I said, there's no fixing it. You know, what am I going to do? Have the character say, he doesn't look like he used to look. You know, he doesn't look in this panel the way he did in the panel previous.
All right.
So that was probably my worst artistic experience.
There's
there
one
was
more.
another guy who, on a Conan story that didn't have any supernatural elements, he threw in supernatural elements. It was done Marvel style, and so he thought he had room, and he had this flashback to this supernatural event. And when I got the art, I said, "What the hell? I didn't write any of this." And I complained to Larry, and he said, well, what do we do? I said, you got to get the guy to do a new ending page that brings the supernatural element back, because otherwise the readers are going to think they're going to see these monsters again, which in this version they didn't. And so he agreed with me, and he said he was on the phone for an hour with the artist explaining why you can't introduce monsters to a story that you simply never see again. But generally overall, I've been super lucky with artists. I mean, I've made some really good friends.
Any thoughts on who's more important, the writer or the artist?
They're equally important. There's no, it's a visual medium, yeah, and the artist the first thing you see. But if you want people to come back, they got to enjoy the story, and the story is really what it's about. And the story involves both the writer and the artist. I mean, what's more important, the music or the lyrics? I mean, it's a silly question. Not to say you're being silly, but I get this question all the time, and people debate it. I was like, what is there to debate? It's story and art. That's what comics are. It's writing and drawing.
As we go back to as far as Stan and Kirby or Stan and Ditko having differences and stuff, the whole quite debate. Who created Spider-Man? Was it Stan or was it Ditko?
Well, it wasn't Stan. Kirby was, Stan in early interviews in the 60s admits, he admitted he had no idea what was going on in Doctor Strange. He didn't understand that thing at all. And he talks about how, Jack would just come up with stuff, and then he would have to tell Stan what the story was about, or he would write in the gutters what was going on. And you can see it on the original art, these notes from Ditko and Kirby. This is what's happening. This is what this guy's saying. Nothing against Stan, because Stan, he was the ambassador to comics. Stan was a tremendous talent. I think comics only continue to exist because of Stan. But the creative, the dynamo there was those two artists.
Okay.
Is there a character or a team that you would flat out give credit to for Stan Lee?
What now?
Well, you're mentioning, he asked who created certain characters. Was it Stan? Was it Ditko? We kind of know the Spider-Man story, and definitely characters like Silver Surfer and Galactus, flat out Jack Kirby's. But do you think there's one out there that could be credited just Stan Lee?
No, because it was all collaborative. It was when they created the Marvel Age of Comics. They were desperate. Stan. Gene Colan told me the story that Stan thought they were going to have to shut the doors forever.
Yeah. And
Fantastic Four and Hulk and Spider-Man, that was their last ditch effort to try to get sales. And it was just all of them putting their heads together. What can we, well, we need this kind of character and this kind of character and this kind of character, and just filling in the blanks. So, Stan's there. He gave them personalities. He was a marketing genius, because he had nothing to work with, no marketing budget whatsoever. He pushed that rock up the hill. He made Marvel Comics happen. I don't take anything away from Stan, but it was just a collaborative, organic method. I do that too. I collaborate with people, and people will say, "Well, who thought of this?" It's like, I don't remember, and they don't remember either. Nobody remembers who created it. It just happened in that boiling pot.
That keeps you out of a lot of drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, I can't, if we were all in the room together, we all created it.
All right. We do have two more questions. One's from Ash on Comics. Says, is there an artist that you've never gotten to work with that you'd love to have illustrate your work?
I would have loved to have worked with Wally Wood even one time. As far as there's a whole ton of European artists I'd love to work with someday. I love Italian comics. I got to write some Italian comics recently and got to work with some great guys. But there's a bunch of guys. But I'm thinking of Alice Nino. I got to work with Alice Nino, and just I can't complain. I've got to work with some of the greats.
Yeah, I mean,
Awesome.
hearing Archie Goodwin, I can only think of Power Man, his dialogue right on there, those early issues.
Yeah.
All they wouldn't fly today.
Going off of your Batman work, if I were to put together a Chuck Dixon artist dream team, I would have loved to have seen what you could do with the Spirit and have Will Eisner draw. I gotta say that, I think, just judging by what I know of your work there, man, I think you could have kicked ass. And of course, we all know Will Eisner would draw the Spirit. Awesome.
No, we definitely would have been on the same page. So.
Yeah, I think that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Another question. This is from Dominic Powell. Who is your favorite author in book series?
I mean,
from him.
In fiction?
I'm guessing.
I mean, I've listed a bunch of guys. Donald. Everyone else.
Dominic just got here too, so.
Oh, okay.
Go back and watch.
Start at the beginning, kids.
Time to rewind.
All right. Well, Evil Black Cat, you've been kind of quiet. Is there? You're a big post-crisis Batman guy. Is there any questions?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening into the conversation and just taking it all in.
He's just having the time of his life.
He starstruck.
Kinda, because like I did tell Vengman that Mr. Dixon's work is some of my favorite stuff from after Batman, like how he followed up Norm Breyfogle and Alan Grant's Batman, and those were just like single one and done stories. But when Mr. Dixon took over, it just became an entire how would you call it? And not an episodic, a serialized version where each issue goes into the next issue, and you had to go the story from Batman related to the story in Detective, to Nightwing, to Robin, to Birds of Prey, to Catwoman, and just that entire era is sometimes just called the Dixon era by Batman fans. So,
Alan and Norm set the bar high. That was a great era to come in on.
Yeah.
Who was responsible? If it was you, I'm not clear on who did what in No Man's Land. So if we're talking about some great work from somebody else, I'm okay with it. But the scene that has always stayed with me is making an unconscious character the scariest motherfucker in the room. And that's what happened with Zaz in the No Man's Land. He was unconscious. He's on a slab in a hospital. And the way that Batman talks about him, the way that everybody talks about him, you didn't have to have him do anything.
Right.
And you created the most frightening character. And I know we're all fanboying right now, but I got to tell you, that is the scene I always go to. That, and of course the Huntress at the end where she's just getting her ass whipped back and forth. But and I guess it's two different tellings of the same story. You'll learn, of course, through her actions what kind of a great hero she is, and you'll learn through other people's reactions as to what kind of villain Zaz is, and you only see the aftermath for Huntress, and you only hear the words, because when he stands up, he walks towards Leslie, and he doesn't really do anything. It's just the look, the way he's been talked about. It's an amazing piece of writing.
Yeah, it is. It's not mine, but
that's what I said. I may be I don't know who did it. And I do not feel bad about talking about great work anyway.
No. I wasn't at the core of the No Man's Land stuff. They would bring me in to do arcs and stuff, but they would say, well, we need this kind of story for this, for 3 issues here, 2 issues there. And I would sort of come in, but I wasn't on the inside.
Okay. Well, once again, great work. I don't feel bad about talking about
No,
it.
no.
I remember there was one Nightwing story where he saved a bunch of people from inside a crevice from drowning and stuff. I don't think that
Yeah,
was
from
you.
the bus sequence. Yeah,
Was that you?
yeah, that was me.
Yeah, I remember that of all the stories in there, that one always sticks out to me because you just see a hero just doing good, not fighting anybody. He's just doing good,
Right.
and yeah, and it's like that's what really just shows you that these guys, anybody can be a hero, and as far as in that sense, and obviously not in the comic book world, you get your butt kicked, unless you got like your Batman is your trainer or you got superpowers, but still, it just caught me off guard. I was like, same thing with like when I read like some of the Roger Stern stuff. Like you get those emotional books, and like it just hits you. It's like, wow, this is just like so great. It's like I look forward more, and that's one of the reasons I'm really enjoying the earlier books. I love when you get that one story in there, even as a standalone, like Superman going around and just helping a woman who is down on her luck. She's homeless during Christmas.
Right.
I love when you get the writer can really just pour out his heart into the book, and it shows, and it just stands out anything else that's going on. You're like, I mean, I love action stuff, but I mean, I love stuff like that too. So when I saw that, that I always go back to that story with Nightwing, him just diving in there and helping the lady and her daughter and stuff, and it's just awesome to me.
Yeah,
That was during the Cataclysm, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was part of Cataclysm. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was like a natural trap, a city bus sinking into the river. And how many people can he save? Can he save all of them? But I've always liked that kind of story. I'm not really prone to write the guys out to save the whole universe. He's out to save a couple of lives, or just do as much as he can do.
Yeah.
And I like the logistics of Cataclysm. It's like I wanted to show the little stories about how the people of Gotham were suffering, not just the heroes standing around brooding about the loss of life. I actually just wanted to see some of those scenes.
Well, if I can say something real quick, yes, I've been doing this for 47 years, and the Cataclysm portion of No Man's Land is the most gripping series of books I've ever read.
Wow.
And that you had part of that, so thank you. Those were just fantastic.
It was fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool when you see a character, you take the guy who's most likely not to be a hero. I love those stories too. It's like, and if he can just save one life, like the Spider-Man stories, he's badly injured, if I can just save one more person,
Right.
It's like, those are more gripping than you just like, your average, let's go sit at a diner and talk for half an hour.
That was something.
About my first world problems. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's why I didn't like the X-Men. I've got wings. People think I'm a weirdo. You've got wings.
But you guys did make it feel like you were living through that earthquake in the aftermath.
Oh yeah,
That's what made that. It was just that and Final Night were the two times I've really felt like I was there.
Wow. Well, thank you.
It's I guess what Venkman's going to say. There's a couple of scenes at the end of Nightfall. Batman's just worn down, and yet he still has to carry some people swimming a long way, and they're just saying he never gave up. It's one of those things. It's one of those things where when other people are talking about him, and it's in such reverence, it makes you, I don't know, it's inspiring. And that's that's what comic books used to be about and such.
Those are the scenes that add resonance to the character. Is characters talking about the character, the other character. And usually it's a no-no in a story to have two characters talking about a character who's absent. But every once in a while, you need that to add that resonance, so that it's basically informing the reader that everyone around this guy knows how awesome he is.
Yeah,
or how frightening he is, or whatever reaction you're looking for.
What is your? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I love the underdog stories. I said, and that's what always when you put your heroes like Superman, showing that he's with all these powers, he can't save everyone, even though it tears him apart. Same with Spider-Man, fighting to the last breath. He's barely beaten. His costume's ripped. I like those. I mean, those are the most gripping, more compelling stories that I drift more to. I imagine a lot of people do. It just seems like we don't get that anymore. You know, and unless you're reading it from somebody who basically no longer is with those big two companies, they just shifted away from that. You know.
Well, there's a feeling, and it's wrong. You know, that like Superman's like a godlike character. It's impossible to write interesting stories about him. So they have to go off on tangents or deal with political issues or whatever. And it's like, no, that's the challenge, that this guy is a godlike figure. You know, people used to laugh at the Mort Weisinger period of Superman stories, but if you read them, they're extraordinarily clever, and they didn't pander to the reader. You know, they're ridiculous, but they're ridiculous in a wonderful way. And they were always coming up with new challenges for Superman. I mean, they understood this character is invulnerable to pain. You know, he's like a god, but they would come up with these endless stories.
Yeah.
Of him being challenged intellectually, morally, you know, in whatever way. And they've totally lost sight of that. They don't understand how nuanced these characters really are.
Yeah, it's not always about like the outside, like whatever you do, whatever he's doing physically. Sometimes it's like you said, there's morals, there's, you know, different things at play that you can do with Superman. You know, how is he going to make the right decision? You know,
right.
Is he going to, if he has to save one or the other? There's a lot of interesting stuff that, yeah, you're right. A lot of people, I just find like a lot of the modern writers, they tend to focus more on like the outside, kind of just like the shallow.
Who are they dating?
Who are they dating? Not so much, exactly. But they don't focus so much on like the actual like morals and beliefs of the characters too much. At least not when they're, you know, not putting their own morals and beliefs in that character's mouth.
Right. And, you know, it's the challenge of writing these characters. That's the job, but they don't want to do the job.
Mm-hmm. Now, I had a question a little earlier, and Almighty Jack, actually, his is very similar to that. Is there any story of yours that you've done that you would say it's kind of, maybe it's underrated or it gets looked over, but you think that it's like a really good story is there one that you think like more people should know or should get a chance to read that kind of gets glossed over?
Well, the most famous or infamous one is Joker Devil's Advocate, which is a hardcover graphic novel that Graham and I did that DC failed to really market. And it's a whodunit mystery. It's a story that presents a moral challenge to Batman, and it is a Joker-centric story. And I think it's some of Graham's greatest art. And the best compliment I ever got on it was Archie Goodwin was our editor, and he says, "You really fooled me with the resolution to the mystery." He says, "I thought I knew from the beginning where you were going, and you went in an entirely different way." So I was really surprised.
Wow.
And Graham and I worked very hard on that story because whodunits are not easy to do, especially in a comic book form.
Yeah, well, you can't exactly say the butler did it. I mean,
yeah, and you know, you don't want to have the nobody leave this room ending and somebody just confesses out of the blue. So, you know, but they failed to market it. They never went back to print on the hardcover. They did a paperback edition, just threw it out there, and it's never been reprinted. It's reprinted, like I said, in Europe. It's reprinted all the time, you know, in a dozen different languages. It's never been reprinted here, and it's kind of heartbreaking for Graham and I because we worked so hard on it.
Yeah, I bet.
El Cazador. Yeah. I just wish I'd gotten to continue it. I would.
Yeah, you did such good work on that. Good.
I worked so hard. Steve and I worked so hard on that book. We did so much research. I mean, I had books on knots. You know, we were only able to do a pirate book. Nobody had ever been able to do a monthly pirate book because of the damn ships. How do you do all the ships? But we bought a program where we could create wireframes of like 36 different period vessels, and then Steve would render from them, which is how Steve got those amazing angles on some of those shots.
That sounds good. And for those of you in the chat who might not know, it was 2000s, right?
Yeah, it was like 2002, I think. 2003.
Chuck wrote this awesome pirate comic. Okay, it ran for what
6 issues.
6 issues. Okay.
Yep.
And yeah, you deserve more, man. I like that. I like that series.
Wow. We were going to do it. When Disney bought the company, I talked to the people at their publishing wing about doing a sequel, And they said, well, we don't see where there's much story left. I said, how can you say there's no? How can you make that appraisal?
Like, did you read the book? Did you see?
Yeah, I mean, it's my biggest regret is issue 6 just ends on a question that never gets answered. So
I just want to take the moment for those of you who just tuned in, I've not checked out the video description. If you want to find more stuff about Chuck Dixon and what he's working on, I got his Ask Chuck Dixon. He's at his website. His website's on there. I have his Subscribe Star if you want to buy him a cup of coffee or whatever. Also, his Indiegogo, the one I showed you earlier, was the Hunter Ninja Bear, and then and Archaven.
Really good.
Archaven Comics.
Yeah, Arctoon's free. Arctoon's, it's a free digital service and high-res comics. We're approaching our 10 million views there.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
It's free, totally free.
and that's something too. It's like it's since you love writing though, obviously, I don't know, probably not. It's for all free, so you're not getting any revenue from that.
No, but it's a place to create.
True. So it's cool because as being a more senior writer, are there any new writers that you noticed coming out, whether it's in the main industry or just industries that you actually would love to collaborate with?
No.
I gotta ask.
I don't encourage competition generally. But yeah, I've reached the age where I don't mince my words anymore. I really haven't seen anything that impressive. And co-writing is Mike Barron always wants to co-write something with me, and I'd love to co-write something with him, but it just never seems to happen.
I can think you can barely call him a new writer.
What's that?
I said you can barely call Mike Barron a new writer.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's tough enough getting together with a guy that I've known for years.
Would you ever write a Badger story?
Did I or would I?
I
wouldn't know how to write a Badger story. Seriously, I love that character. It's a Mike thing. I just wouldn't go near those characters. There's certain things guys do that are indelible. It's like when they asked me to do a Superman Aliens sequel to Dan Jurgens' Superman Aliens, I said I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't. It's so perfect. I wouldn't dare go near it. I said, but if you let me do Superman and Aliens in Kirby's Fourth World, I'm your man, and they let me do that.
Yeah, I saw that you did a Batman versus Predator volume. Was it the third time around? The volume 3?
Yeah, volume 3. Yeah, that was I had to hold a gun to DC's head. DC had done something really nasty to me, and I said, okay, you owe me, and they agreed that they owed me, but I knew better than to just put it in the favor bank. So I made up a list of dream projects I wanted greenlit, and they had to do them, and I made them sign it. And Batman Predator 3 with Rodolfo DiMaggio was on the list, and Joker's Devil's Advocate was on the list, along with a few other things.
You know what I've never seen? I've never seen a Conan versus Predator.
That would be awesome. I'd write that in a heartbeat.
Why has no one ever done that?
I pitched Sergeant Rock versus Predator.
Oh, that would have been great.
And they were like, "Oh, nobody knows who Sergeant Rock is." I said, "It's Predator in World War II. Who the hell cares if they know who Sergeant Rock is?"
And if they don't know, they know Predator.
Exactly.
I want to see Predator fight World War II soldiers. Yes, please.
Right? Yeah. It was going to be set in North Africa, and Predator cutting up Nazis. Come on, take my money.
For real.
And they were so short-sighted they wouldn't think that perhaps then maybe the Predator audience would be brought to Sergeant Rock.
No, they never think of things like that. They never. It's always what's in it for us.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But the fact that some guys on YouTube have better marketing ideas than these guys who are in charge of all of the publishing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've talked about this on Ask Chuck Dixon, but I think crossovers are a way for comics to get back on the map because, we've lost a generation of readers. So just come up with the craziest crossovers you can imagine, because it's like really the only thing that would get the attention of a casual reader would be, X-Men meet Freddy Krueger. Just throwing something out there, just something insane that people would go, well, they'd at least have to check it out. And I really think that's the only way they're going to attract new readers back to the medium.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
Do outrageous stunts like that.
that'd be the only way I'd read anything with the whiny X-Men, you know?
The possibility they'd be tormented by a child molester. Yeah.
the problem with it, of course, is that they would say, "Great idea, let's get Teenie Howard or Editorial,
Yeah,
or
Franklin,
there's
yeah.
that.
Gabby Rivera."
Venkman, you know Ash is dying in chat right now.
I know. I just saw. He's like, oh, my heart, because he's a really huge X-Men fan. He loves.
Well, I mean, yeah, God bless you. They're just not my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not denying their success. They've been enormously, and they have rabid fans, and that's great. They're just not my thing.
Now I want a Chuck Dixon take on if you could fix the X-Men.
No, I wouldn't even. No, because that wouldn't be fair to X-Men. They don't want to read my X-Men. They want to read classic X-Men. By people that actually like the characters.
You know what? You'd be just the same as probably better because of your experience. But I don't think that any modern comic book writer likes the characters either. I just don't get that feel. I don't get that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think they write for contempt for the characters, contempt for the medium, contempt for the readers. They're tourists. They're working in comics as a resume enhancer for when they go for their real job at Vanity Fair.
So me and they were pretty much the same people writing She-Hulk.
Yeah. I was about to say, sounds like She-Hulk show writers. I wasn't going to bring it up, though.
There are exceptions. Robert Venditti is somebody, and he mentioned Ram V. They're the two at this point.
Yeah, see, the problem is like we used to get comps. I don't get comps anymore, so I don't see any new comics.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those two, and then maybe Jeremy Adams. But yeah, it's not a large crowd. You can count them almost.
As Eric says, there's no new comics after 2012.
I thought it was 14.
No. There were no new Marvel comics after 2012. There are some very, very good IDW GI Joes around 2012.
There are. I actually have some of those.
I get what he's saying.
Actually, like, I would totally read Dixon's X-Men run.
Well, I mean, we've seen the Justice League and the Avengers, and we've seen like the Supreme Squadron, or Squadron Supreme, sorry. Like, which pretty much are like the same, almost the same like rip-off versions of each other.
Right.
So I kind of want to see a Dixon X-Men verse. We'll call him the Dixman,
Oh,
He went there.
Sorry, I had to.
Now I don't want anything but. I mean, how can we get that Indiegogo up?
Right?
You just gotta wait for the X-Men to go on the public domain, and then you can just alter
when they start licensing them.
Yeah, when they start licensing, I've heard some people say that's where like DC is starting to go and Marvel. So
definitely DC's going to go there. This Discovery Channel guy is cleaning house.
I know. I kind of like it actually.
Yeah, I definitely like it. I like some of these companies waking up, like for real waking up.
I was saying, I thought they were woke.
Yeah, they're woke, but they're not awake.
That's right. There's a difference.
Oh no. So I'm trying to see if there's any more questions at all. Well, yeah. Is it? I know it's on the Wikipedia too. It says you were offered a chance to write Expendables for this 2. I think it was the movie.
Yeah. I did an Expendables prequel for Dynamite, and then Sylvester Stallone called me. He had read it and he liked it, and he liked the way I treated the characters, and he asked me if I wanted to. If I would want to work on a rewrite of Expendables 2 with him. And it's like, yeah, it sounds like fun. And he had them fly me out, and I had a production meeting, which was an education. And I thought it went well. Then I found out later that everybody thinks every production meeting went well. What I didn't know is it didn't go well. Although I saw a guy recently, a big time producer, and he was talking about how you should act in a production meeting. And I didn't break any of the rules. I acted the way you're supposed to act at a production meeting. Good. So that was good.
Maybe if you broke the rules, they would have been better,
Well, I did argue a little, but I can't help myself. And then I thought it was like a creative process. It wasn't just listen to them, just nod. Yes, that's fabulous. But the best thing to come out of it is that a continuing relationship with Sylvester Stallone, because he got me other work with Lionsgate and places like that. So he actually got me paying work.
That's cool.
And then of course, when I approached him about doing Expendables Go to Hell, he was like, fine, because he's a big comics fan. And in fact, I just completed another project, which will be announced in a few weeks with him, a graphic novel project. With
awesome.
Stallone. So, I mean, I'm not a friend. I've never been to lunch with him, but he calls there once in a while and we just shoot the shit.
That's cool. Like you just even say that. Yeah, Stallone just called me the other day.
Yeah, I mean,
that's cool.
He's unlike everyone else or most people in Hollywood. He didn't forget me the minute I walked out the door. He was like,
yeah,
I like talking to this guy. I like dealing with this guy. I want to give him some more work. And we're both from Philadelphia. Maybe that's
my only thing would be like, can you repeat what you said? Your accent's really thick.
That's how. That's actually how Stallone kind of got his start. He did Lords of Flatbush with Fonzarelli and Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
Henry Winkler.
And Henry Winkler took a script. I forget to what studio, and they were going to make it. He thought he was doing. I sold your script, but they didn't want Stallone.
Right.
So he says, "Hey, why'd you do that? I wanted to be a part of it." And so Henry Winkler went back and said, "Yeah, let me get that script back from you guys." And so he had somebody watching out for him and getting him his big break.
Yeah. He wrote Rocky, and that's supposed to be one of my favorite movies.
Well, yeah, that was the script I was talking about.
Yeah,
Henry Winkler. He was instrumental in getting
he
that
stuck
started.
to his guns. He wouldn't allow them to cast anybody but himself in it.
Yep.
And the other thing I really respect about him was he sold Rocky to two different studios at the same time, which is why he had to make the movie Paradise Alley. The only way out of it. He settled with them. He says, "Well, I'll make a movie for you too that has, fighting in it."
So you always hear about, like, you say actors say, like, when they first started, like, oh, I was sleeping in here. I had a refrigerator, and then I had lucky if I had anything, like an apartment in New York. What was your start out like when you first, were you like living like?
Yeah, I was living on my sister's horse farm when I first. I was, I really didn't have a job. She working in an insurance company. She got me a job as a security guard. And I was really down on my luck. I mean, I had nothing, and just started submitting to the companies. And like I said, I met Tim Truman. He got me work at Eclipse. And then almost simultaneously, Larry Hama took me on at Marvel, and then just never looked back. So
that's awesome.
Within a year or so, I was married and had a house and, a new car. So
that was the first one or the second one?
Second one.
All right.
So
he's talking about cars.
Yeah, I'm talking about cars. Okay, so Austin P has been. I feel bad. He's asked the third time he's asked. He's like, "Did you have anything to do with the Bane episode in the Batman animated series?"
No, they told me about it, but that's about all. Like I said, there was like a barrier between comic book guys working on the animated series. Because if you'll notice, there's a couple of comic book guys wrote episodes, but they were all members of Screen Actors Guild or Screenwriters Guild. So they were allowed in. We weren't. But yeah, they told me about it, and they gave me a cell from it, which was cool.
Yeah, I just was like a month ago or two ago. I learned that Michael Straczynski wrote real Ghostbusters cartoon stuff, a lot of '80s stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So when I see these guys doing stuff like that, and then coming in the comic book, and then just basically saying like, what? I'll go back to where I was, where I'm getting paid more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have that option. I was a comic guy.
So, who is obviously we all get starstruck when we meet people. Like, who is the person that basically made you you're starstruck, but flabbergasted? Who was, as far as
I met Harvey Kurtzman, creator of Mad Magazine.
Oh wow!
And I babbled like an idiot. I didn't make any sense at all. I mean, I wasn't speaking any language known to man. I just fell apart. And he was so kind. and so generous. Probably thought I was a lunatic, but he just sort of patted me on the shoulder and thanked me and moved along. The other guy that intimidated the hell out of me and always had fun intimidating the hell out of me was Russ Heath. I idolized Russ so much that it took me, he had questions on a script, and it took me 3 days to work up the cojones to call him. And then, of course, he savaged me. He loved doing that. And from that point on, we worked a lot together. Every time I met him, he pretended it was the first time that he didn't remember me.
Is that funny how that goes? Like, it's like you don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time, you don't want to end up looking like an idiot,
Right.
And it's so hard to do. Like sometimes, I was watching an interview with Mike Myers. He said he was in England and he met somebody and he just he developed an unnatural laugh. He's like, I've never done this laugh. I think was it Robert De Niro? That's what it was.
Oh,
He's like, I never had this laugh before. All of a sudden, it's like, I'm just doing this laugh. He's like, what the hell's going on? It's like a fake laugh.
Well, I mean, I got to meet Kirby, and talk to him, but the plus side was it was me with a bunch of fans standing in a hotel lobby, and he walked up to us and started the conversation. And so that was cool. And then I got to meet Ditko, but I had no warning. So I had no chance to geek out. It was like, do you want to meet Steve Ditko? Yes. He's standing right over there. And I was introduced to him, and we had a really nice conversation. And I didn't turn into a blithering moron, which I probably would have if I'd had 30 minutes notice that this was going to happen.
Right. Obviously back then, it's probably the same as it is today. I mean, I guess, depends on your viewpoint of the world. You got to really choose what you say and what you don't say, because you never know how someone's going to take, even if you're joking.
Yeah.
That's nerve wracking, especially when you're in a business as far as it's competitive as far as Marvel and DC or any comic book stuff.
Well, that was always my problem. I would just say what was on my mind. And I mean, I said things at lunches at DC and Marvel were just, the scene in the Western where the piano player stops playing?
Yeah.
Just over and over and over. I wish I had a Polaroid of Doug Mensch's face when I said that I thought that the Vietnam War was completely justified. I mean, the look of horror on his face was priceless.
Well, that's an interesting segue, because eventually I was going to get to you. I don't know how to ask you about this, but you took over Marc Spector's Moon Knight.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was a while. I mean, other people had written it between me and Doug. When Doug tells the story, it's like I took the character away from him. But there were people between us, quite a few. And it was Carl Potts was editor, and he didn't like the split personality gimmick. And he said, just lean into him being a mercenary. And I thought, okay, cool. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dogs of War, and stuff like that. So that's what I did. And we just made it sort of a weird combination of superheroics and military action.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm not a fan of the split personality either. I like the original run, but I can appreciate other viewpoints. People like that. That's cool.
Well, they kept trying to juice the character up because they really thought this is Marvel's Batman. He's not Marvel's Batman.
I know.
There's only one Batman, but they kept trying to think of ways he should be more popular than he is. It's like, okay.
I got a kick out when Doug Mensch had written that story where basically it was actually where him and Don Perlin were writing Werewolf by Night.
Yeah.
And introducing him in there, and his dialogue, it was just just so out there, and it's like, is this a comedy or is this supposed to be like a supernatural? Just it just turned into wow, where is this? I want more of this.
Yeah. Doug could get a tone in a story nobody else could get. It was such a Doug thing. I told Doug when we first started working together, I said, you're such a wordsmith. I'm not a wordsmith, but you are, because of his use of language and stuff. Always amazed me.
Werewolf by Night was more like a serious, and then you bring in the Moon Knight. It's like, okay, I guess we're shifting gears now.
Well, I'm sure that was editorially driven.
Probably, but obviously it worked for me. I like the Mercenary, but I mean, I haven't gone all the way through the end of the first run.
Right.
So when he starts doing the splits, personality stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, like you've written a lot of like famous IPs. That's it's like, and for how humble you are, like that is so awesome to see, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, they get too big for the britches, obviously.
Yeah, I'm just lucky. I mean, I'm lucky I got to do
So,
what I love.
do
I'll admit, yeah, it's in my DNA. Writing comics is in my DNA. It's the only thing I do well, but I never take myself very seriously. I take the work very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously.
Do you ever go out and do conventions like signings and that stuff like that?
Well, I used to before COVID, and now I got out of the habit, and then I find out I kind of like this better, not going anywhere.
Right?
There's a Dilbert cartoon I love where Wally says him and Dilbert talking about COVID, and he goes, "Yeah, it's just 2 months by myself, not talking to anybody, not going anywhere." He goes, "This was the best months of my life." And Dilbert says, "I didn't want to be the first one to say it." I had every reason. Hey, come do this. No, COVID. Hey, we want you to do this. Oh, COVID. Can't do anything. Just stay home and write.
Well, sometimes, yeah. I mean, getting up older in age, and you can't just bolt from one place to the other place. You need sleep.
Yeah, and I just I miss talking to fans and stuff. But then I've got venues like this. I'm talking to you guys, and I'm having a better conversation here than I could have at a con, because usually people at cons are so freaked out they can't talk to you.
Well, I guess
or they're wishing they were talking to Neil Gaiman. But
I'm just. I mean, it'd be a different story from you if you're on camera. Right now, I'm just putting on my mind. I'm like, it's not him. It's not him. It's like so you get over that awkward feeling. But if in person, you're like, and everyone's behind you, waiting for you to say something. You're like, hi. Yeah.
Vegman, the way you treat everybody over 50, if we could see Chuck, you'd probably be offering him some pudding.
Chuck, you want some pudding? Because
no, I've got my teeth.
Obviously, Eric wants pudding. He's mad.
I do, actually.
I was say pudding does sound pretty good right now.
Actually, a snack pack.
Yeah, but I've been on the other side of the table too. At the fan, wondering what can I say to this guy. I want him to sign my comic, but I'd like to talk to him too. But what the hell do I ask?
It's such a weird conundrum to be in.
Did you ever feel awkward, like as far as some people charge a lot for their sign? Like, I know John Byrne definitely hit you have a story with John Byrne walking. I think you were gonna approach him for the signature, and he wanted like $100 on it.
Wow. Yeah, I know. I've never charged for signatures. I mean, I do a deal once a year with TGC, but that's all part of a grading system, and those people obviously have money. But I don't charge for signatures. In fact, my Subscribe Star thing, when you subscribe, you're going to get a package of signed comic. Yeah. When you join. So I mean, I've never been able, because I'm like, Jack Kirby didn't charge me.
Are you team slabbed or unslabbed books?
Yeah, I don't understand slabbing. I mean, who knows what comic is really in there?
Yeah, I mean, totally. What's the point of? I mean, it's like you were saying. It's a visual story. Like, yeah, the covers can be pretty and all to look at, but I think the real meat and potatoes of it is inside the book. Like, that's where you get all the real enjoyment.
I mean, I want to read them. I mean, I was upset when my favorite comics are like war comics from the 50s and 60s, and they used to be so cheap, and now they're so expensive. I mean, because I just buy them, I just want to read them.
Oh, who didn't know this was coming?
Hells yeah, I told you I was going to be doing this all week. I can't find it. It didn't pop up. Here it is.
That happens in old age.
Oh, no, right here.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Nice.
I love that stuff.
An Atlas War comic I found recently. Yeah.
Doesn't get better. That's good stuff.
Now, my exception for me personally, if it's like a really, really old manga, it's like a 1.0 and it's from the 30s or 40s, and I'm afraid if it gets air, it's just gonna fall apart. Like Action Comics #1, that's slab. That's like a Dead Sea Scroll for me.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's like an artifact.
Right. But from the 80s though, if people say like, "Do you sign my slab book here?" or whatever, it's like, or whatever. That's weird. That's weird to me. It's like 80s is what 40 years ago now.
The most important comic book to get slabbed in all honesty, would be the MF version of Captain Marvel. This is the most important book.
What idiot sent that to you?
I know, right? By the way, thank you, idiot. I
You're welcome.
certainly appreciate it. I love that. I love that book is so freaking bad. It is amazing.
That is a horrible book.
It is, but it's so much fun for how bad it is. It's like the Rocky Horror Picture Show of comics.
That's one way to ensure that it doesn't get read.
There
you go.
Marani has a question for Mr. Dixon. What character that you haven't written about yet would you like to write?
Geez, I got in the right. I said before, I'd like
to. I'm just reading the questions.
Yeah, I know. Long run on Fantastic Four would have been fun, but that was never going to happen. I got to write Lone Ranger, which was my other one I really wanted to do. So, I can't think of anybody like right now.
Rocketeer?
Huh?
What about Rocketeer?
Nah, not really. To me, Rocketeer, that was all Dave Stevens. I don't really like the other iterations of it.
We've seen it out of his hands. I mean, just recently, it was like good first issue, I got to admit, but Eric told us it went off the freaking rails after a while.
The hero is saved by the girl who comes out as he's being gay in the 30s.
Yeah, that's the thing now. Girl power.
Yep.
Not that I made my bones writing female characters, but
I'm buying a lot of those back issues of Catwoman. I'm just
El Cazador. To put down, you don't write strong women by making weak
exactly,
men. And that's one of the things that is now the thing to do. Or you don't write strong characters by making them go get coffee for 9 issues and never showing up in their superhero form. That was the last She-Hulk freaking run. It was ridiculous.
Well, the writers were writing what they knew.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's the problem with this, writing superheroes, fantasy, science fiction. You got to kind of stretch beyond your own personal experiences to make the story interesting.
I'm being yelled at in caps by Ashland Comics saying I need to curate the questions. When it's your interview, you can do what you want to do.
Yeah,
we'll have to get a channel first.
Damn it!
Oh, he beat you by
we always tease Ash he's like, oh, Ash has a channel. So just I'll just quickly say we rib each other. Something that it's apparently considered to be toxic now, I guess.
I gotta say, I feel out of place here. Nobody's ribbed me even one time, and it's been like 2 hours. I feel completely.
You weren't reading the chat.
Yeah.
we don't have anything to rib on you because I don't think Chuck Dixon did any books that starred a black guy. So you like all of his stuff.
Wow. So little context is that Zach decided when we had an auction.
Yeah, I'm not racist.
We had Power Man and Iron Fist.
A racist would say.
I had an auction and I had Power Man, Luke Cage Power Man books, and then Iron Man and Power Man and Iron Fist books. And he goes, I only like the books with Iron Fist in them.
I like the team-ups.
So we've been ragging him. That was like a year ago.
God, that was at least a year and a half.
Yeah, we're friends, so we rag each other.
We're friends. We're friends.
The funny part is that people coming in to watch this for his first time and seeing us dragging on him are like,
wait, is he?
Wait, is he really
actually
racist?
I feel more bad for Chuck because I just said, I don't think he did. Yeah, I don't think it was for that reason. So did you? Yeah, because I just pulled Chuck into the whole thing. So
in my defense, I am working for Eric July now. So
there you go.
Hey,
okay,
there you go. Yeah.
So yeah, you get it's like in the '90s. You could wear the T-shirt black owned. So you're all good. You're good to go.
All right. MKF 30 saying, if you could write any horror character comic series, what would it be?
Any what? What?
Do you have any
horror character like Freddy or Chucky or Mike Myers?
I got
America Chavez.
I got
Captain Marvel.
I got to do Nightmare on Elm Street comic for a while. That was fun. But classic horror. I did Joe Frankenstein with Graham Nolan, and we're hoping to revisit that soon.
like some
Oh,
Hammer
nice.
stuff inspired
What?
comic books, maybe.
You know,
I'm sorry, I missed
Sorry,
that.
I'm sorry. I meant as far as like some Hammer, like old Hammer.
Yeah, I mean,
classic
I
stories.
take a shot at that. I had a series I pitched and I had a lot of artwork done for it called Sword of Wood, and it was a vampire epic set during the time of the Crusades
Oh wow.
that
You
I
know
hope
what?
to get back to.
Solomon Kane.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good match.
Yeah, I could probably do something with Solomon Kane.
Yeah. See, we're getting he mentioned, he literally said, "I've got months of work to do," and we're just piling on the ideas. And
We're
stuff.
giving him more stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you back a truckload of money up to the house, and we can talk.
Well, I've got probably $150. Anybody want to pull up?
So you get a couple 100,000 of those $150s, and I'll do it.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Story.
That's what I joke about. Bruce Campbell says, "I'll never play Ash again." I'm like, yeah. They offer you the right price. You're like, I'm back. Hi.
You offer him enough money, he'll play Ash on comics.
I think he'd have a little more dignity than that.
Right there. Awesome piece saying Vampire and Crusades, sign me up.
So okay, now Chuck, hold on. I want to see if we can't make this a reality. So Chuck, you just said if we could get enough money, what if we ran an IG account or a Kickstarter for a Solomon Kane and it actually paid out?
Yeah, I'd work on it. Is Solomon Kane's in public domain now, right?
Yeah.
I would do that.
So it would literally just be Chuck Dixon page rate plus we need to find a proper artist.
We need to find a good artist.
I heard Osmo is available.
Comics aren't cheap. So they're cheaper than every other entertainment, but they're still not cheap. It's the artist that's the key. I mean, I can't tell you how many crowdfunders I've written for free just so we could get the right artist.
Wow.
So what artists you haven't got a chance to work with that you want to work with?
Wow.
Dead or alive?
There's a Pasquale. What you mean on Solomon Kane or just in general?
Or just Dream in general. If you had a choice from any artist that's passed on recently that you would have loved to just have work on a book with.
Jeez. I'm trying to think of guys I never got to work with. Alex Toth, probably. If I could get over being intimidated.
Good pull. As far as Solomon Kane and the people you used to work with, I know he's a bit stylized, and I know some people have a problem with 12 feet bad ears. Bring in Kelly Jones.
Kelly Jones would be good. There's an Italian artist, Pasquale Frazenda, whould be really good too.
Oh yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, I've seen his stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that would kill on that because you got to get guys that are going to do the homework and make it look right in period. But Kelly Jones, that'd be cool.
Yeah, because that would be he was wasn't he the vampire story? I'm sorry, my memory is not what it used to be, but wasn't he on that? Who was that?
Who?
The Bloodstorm, Batman the Vampire stories.
Yeah, that was Kelly Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm picturing that kind of European setting with that art. Holy crap.
Cool. You'd be very cool.
Now in the chat, tell me you do not want this freaking story. A Solomon freaking Kane, Kelly Jones art, Chuck Dixon, right? Okay. I mean, boom, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's why is this not already existing, Chuck? Come on.
The gatekeepers. They're keeping us down.
I know, right?
They don't want good comics, these publishers.
This is something because I'm talking to you about it here, and I don't think there's anything else I want in the world, in the comic book world anyway, that more than this. That I think would be freaking awesome.
Yep. Well, maybe it started here. We'll see.
That'd be a fun story to tell.
Almighty Jack, Kelly Jones and Chuck back together. Yes. I do. I hear. I've heard, or at least by that I mean I've got comments and such on my channel about how, oh no, I don't like Kelly Jones on Batman because the ears, and it just seemed like, I'm like, just you know what, you read the Spawn comic or the Batman comic with Todd McFarlane art with a cape blowing this way and that way in the back. You're fine, okay? I'm just sorry. Yeah, it's stylized, but it's just
stylized like Todd McFarlane, where the cape it goes forever.
Yeah,
ever.
Well, Kelly Jones creates his own consistent reality, and that's who
Yep.
you got to go with.
Yep.
It's it's like anything else. You either like it or you don't. But Kelly doesn't care because
No.
he's putting all that love into it. I mean, who works harder than Kelly Jones?
Only you can answer that question, sir.
He works pretty damn hard. He works pretty damn hard.
Yeah, but
you've never seen Kelly Jones phone it in. That's for damn sure.
Or Trace.
Yeah, or Trace. It's all him.
Oof. We've seen some people that look like they're just pulling it out of magazines.
Well, that's
Greg.
what they're doing.
I
And there's
Greg
a way
Land.
to do that, so it's not so obvious. But some people apparently don't care.
see. I don't think Solomon Kane, written by Chuck Jones and drawn by Greg Land, would build the same excitement as Kelly Jones.
Who's
just
Chuck
saying.
Jones?
Did I say Chuck Jones? God damn it!
You said
That's
Chuck
that's what I'm
Jones.
talking about with my memory. Sorry there, Chuck.
You're thinking about the cartoon.
You know what? But if you're gonna be mistaken for somebody, hey, Chuck Jones.
Well, I'm not a very big Chuck Jones fan, so I'm insulted.
All right, you have a good day, man. There's no point in talking to you anymore.
If you had 2 hours and 10 minutes, you won.
You're joking about that, right?
No, I'm actually not.
Really? You're not
No,
a Chuck
I'm not a big
Jones?
Chuck Jones fan.
Okay, now I've got to ask you about that. What is it about Chuck Jones that is like?
Well,
Nah, it's not.
he's like the guy who's most remembered from that era of animation, but I think
Yeah.
he was overshadowed by other guys. Tex Avery and
Well, yeah.
Bob Clampett, and I just love the story when Walt Disney fired Chuck Jones.
Okay, so this is. Did he overshadow them, or he was overshadowed?
He was overshadowed by them.
Yeah, okay.
He was all about cartoons as an art. I mean, there was this time when he was talking about how they had an opportunity to create art and all this other stuff, and all the other animators and Termite Terrorists were sitting around listening to him. And then Tex Avery said, to hell with all that. Let's just knock him dead. And that's to me, that was the job, knock him dead.
Yeah, I can't argue. I'm going to argue that Chuck Jones is great, yes, but I can't argue that Tex Avery isn't. I mean, he's freaking Tex Avery.
I mean, Chuck Jones certainly was a great animator. I just don't think he's the genius that a lot of people put him out to be.
Okay,
So
we'll agree
I
to this.
found his stuff somewhat repetitive.
You know what? I could buy into that. I can buy into that. But I wish actually more kids these days, or at least somehow, Tex Avery, the cartoons he did were more popular.
Yeah.
But unfortunately,
People got to raise their kids right. I mean,
yeah.
I was talking to someone, I was like waiting at the deli counter, and some woman was talking to me about her kid who was with her, and the kid would never liked only certain things to watch on TV or only certain movies. I said, well, you have to expose them early.
Yep.
And I said, my kids watch old movies in black and white. She says, well, I could never get my kids to watch that. I goes, well, you're cheating your kids out of the Marx Brothers. You owe it to them and at least show them Duck Soup.
That's good stuff.
And they will respond. It doesn't matter. They'll think it's funny.
Yeah.
You're prejudicing. This is your prejudice, not theirs. Because we exposed our kids to everything: Looney Tunes, Mickey Mouse, Buster Keaton, and they ate it all up.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my dad would we would watch Three Stooges shorts like all day with my dad. So we loved the black and white comedies like Three Stooges, Abbott and Costello. You mentioned the Marx Brothers.
Yep.
And then my mom, who watches westerns and has watched westerns ever since she
Oh
was a
man,
kid.
I love.
So I mean, I'd be like the only 12-year-old kid in my friend group who knew who John Wayne was and could name off a dozen John Wayne westerns. Like, what are you watching those old movies for? It's like, they're awesome. We
were in a movie theater one time waiting in the popcorn line, and the guy in front of me he was like in his 80s, and he had this awesome Western shirt on, Western style shirt, and I complimented him on it. And he talking about how he was a big Western memorabilia collector, and I have pictures signed by this guy and that guy and that guy. And my son, who at the time was about 11, said, "Do you have Randolph Scott?" And the guy was like, "No, I don't." Wait a minute. How do you know who Randolph Scott is?
Oh, wow.
That I remember. That's how I was introduced to the Universal Monsters, the midnight movie that had Frankenstein and the Mummy and all those. and Creature from the Black Lagoon, which was filmed here in Florida. So we got to go to Tallahassee and swim in the same area that it was filmed.
Oh, that would
It was
terrify me.
fun. Oh, it was really fun because, you were able to swim a certain area, but if you swam a little bit past that, your ass is going to get eat.
Yeah,
because a lot of gators. That was what surprised me, because we did take a boat tour and they were showing us all the places it was filmed, and they said, "Oh, and right down here was the famous scene where goodness, I forget the actress's name, but she was grabbed." And while we're on this boat tour, there's like 2 gators just kind of swim under the boat. And I was like, "Yep, nope."
they are everywhere. They are everybody. That's why I had to teach my kids when we moved down here. I said every body of water, no matter how small, has a gator in it.
Yeah. Oh, you're a Floridian now too?
Yeah, 20 years.
Also teach them that they climb fences.
Yeah.
Oh no, they do. They do climb fences.
I'm just saying, yeah. So don't think like I'm gonna buy backyard. No, you're not. We look first.
I have a story that it did happen. Me and my cousin were sleeping on our back porch. It was it had a screen and everything and a door, but we hear this ching 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 ching, and we picked up our flashlights, went out to check what it was. Alligators were climbing over the fence. We're like, "Yep, we're back inside." That is freaky to find that out.
That is a very disturbing fact that alligators could do that.
If you like a lot of going back to the classic cinema stuff, I mean, Tubi TV is one of the coolest things I've ever seen for free stuff.
Oh, they've got all the superhero serials now. They've got Captain America, Shazam, Rocket Man, Green Hornet, all sorts of that.
Curse of Frankenstein. A lot of those old Hammer movies are on there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I remember the thing that stuck with my kids, because I showed them Batman '66, they loved it. I showed them the Addams Family, they didn't care for it. Okay, but the monkeys stuck.
Wow,
that was a big thing. I'm a huge Monkees fan, and my kids just gravitated towards that.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
thankfully.
Great. My kids, my youngest especially, went crazy over Hogan's Heroes.
Oh yeah,
nice. That's
really weird.
Show.
It was my dad's favorite TV show.
Yeah, wow. That was another one that we used to watch, was Hogan's Heroes.
Of course you did.
I loved Hogan's Heroes.
Richard
Dawson, because we would watch the Family Feud too on the game show channel, and so I saw Richard Dawson. I was like, "Hey, it's that guy."
He escaped.
He got out.
Yeah, I just another channel I do with my friend Rob, Extreme Movie Show. We just reviewed the Curse of the Werewolf, with Oliver Reed. First time watching that, I was like, when is he coming this movie? 48 minutes later. I was like, it's like he's the main star, but he only gets the last half. But I just love the way Hammer Productions did a lot of their stuff. The soundstage, even Universal in the beginning. That's cool to me. The setting, the whole theme of it, the Victorian era. It's like I love that. It's like that's cool. And then I think about it, it's like you almost like you kind of I want to live in that house, but I think like wait, they don't have electricity. So everything. Yeah, cold. Yes, the castle's a little bit drafty tonight.
Mariah's saying she wants to see Chuck Dixon write Florida Man.
Oh no, that's Mike's all together, man.
No, Mike did not do Florida Man justice. I'm sorry. He turned the whole point about Florida Man is regular people do crazy things. Right. And he made him straight up swamp rat, hillbilly kind of talking. I was like, I'm personally offended. I was born here.
Oh well, you would be. You're an endangered species, the native Floridian.
The older you get, the less there are of us. Like
right.
my dad was born with like 2 other people in this state at the time. So
yeah,
is that because of the gators?
Yeah, they eat the babies. That's what happens. If you're running away from a gator, you drop your child, you get away. That's generally the way it works. So there's very few of it.
Natural selection. Somebody's got to go.
Florida Man
has been outcompeted by snowbirds. So
yeah, that's basically it. Because there's a ton of tourists down here, and then there's the tourists that go, I really like it here. I think we'll move, and then of course.
Yeah, when I moved here 20 years ago, it was all cattle country around me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like I'm living on Long Island. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, I don't want to dox you too much, but what area are you in? I don't want.
I'm outside Tampa.
You're outside
okay.
Tampa. Yeah, I'm down the street and around the corner from.
All right, so you know where it's near that old community center where they have all the young singles.
No, what he does have. I used to live out right next to the bay. What he does have now is a really good concert venue in Busch Gardens.
Yeah. But it's I love it here. I'm glad I moved here, but it's changed so much. I can't imagine what change you've seen.
Down here with all the New Yorkers coming in, and our city got built up and out, and everything's really damn expensive. Yeah, it's changed a lot from where I've lived. Unfortunately, the neighborhood I grew up with was called Pine Hills. Now we call it Crime Hills. Yeah, but once again, I moved out a little bit, always came back. I'm an Orlando guy, and by that I mean the greater area. I won't move back to the city again. We lived there for long enough.
I like Clausen P's asking, how on earth the alligators climb fences? I'm like, I'm surprised they're not opening doors.
Now I'm thinking of Jurassic Park. Yeah, as long as they can't open doors.
They climb those fences very frighteningly, by the way.
I would imagine.
It's really creepy to see.
You would think that the weight of the fence would just go over.
Well, there's that too.
In the area you have you ever had an encounter with a bear?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that'll put a spot in your drawers? I don't care who you are. If you're walking down and there's a black bear, it's like, okay.
I had an encounter with a black bear in the Maine woods.
Ooh.
And it was a big guy. I never saw him because it was pitch dark out. All I saw were two giant silver dollars for eyes. He got real close and he was pissed off. And I always heard, hey, you bang pots and pans together and they'll run away. Not this one. And
like that.
That's the closest I've ever gotten to losing my mud. I have never been that scared my entire life.
I'm up in Wisconsin. I mean, I'm in the southern part of Wisconsin, but I've gone up to the northern part there, and just seeing what's left of I've never seen an actual physical bear other than behind a cage and on the cage. And you're here if you want to feed them at the little petting zoo. It's like, give them sugar water. I'm like, oh, he's a gentle giant, but he's like 800 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking this guy, you have no chance. Like, play dead, and he's like, you're playing dead. I'm gonna eat you either way.
What you gotta do is you just make sure you go into the woods with somebody else. Then all you gotta do is outrun them. That's the thing, right?
The scary part is when you see the damage they do the things without even seeing them there, it makes you even more scared. So when you finally do see him, hey, he's not behind a fence or anything, but he's looking right at me.
Yep. He's making up his mind.
Yeah, right. He's like, do I want to start with the little one or the big one? It's like
Yeah, I mean, I was camping with a friend, and we were in a 3-sided lean-to. It was open in the front, and this thing showed up, and they're loud, man. They don't sneak up on you, and he got right outside that lean-to and was going to come in. And my buddy said, well, what if he comes in? He doesn't mean to hurt us. I said he could kill us without meaning to hurt us. I don't think he has any intention of being nice because he was growling and huffing, and he didn't want us in there. He wanted in there.
My brother-in-law's father, he'd go camping and stuff. He said he always carried his 50 cal on him. He had so he had the dirty hairy gun.
Right.
The Magnum. He's like, if I'm going out, I'm taking a chunk of this guy with them because they come over. They especially during hunting season. They're not going to bed yet, but they're looking for food to pull into, and they see oh, it's a fresh kill, and they see you're like, oh, bonus.
Right. Well, I mean, if it was possible to wish a 44 Magnum into my hand that night, it would have happened. And when I got back to when I was living in Pennsylvania, when I got back from Maine, that's the first thing I did. I bought a 44 Magnum revolver. Next time I went to Maine, that thing went with me. And every time I went hiking in Maine, I had that thing on me.
Because I'm like 2 hours, from Chicago from here. where I am, and we've seen them come down where I am, and so it's like, and then like, what? There's a bear going across Arby's parking lots? Like, no, go stay up north. You know, they go where the food is. It's
Oh yeah, yeah. As the park ranger explained to us, the bear was people oriented. So that's like the politically correct way of saying he's a man eater.
So how did you do in the hurricane?
We did okay. We just got brushed.
Yeah.
We just got brushed.
Yeah, it's same here. We were worried about it, but then by the time it got to us, it blew some tree limbs down and everything. But if you live here for a while, yeah, I wasn't sorry. I'm going to be that guy who dies in a hurricane. But yeah, glad you're okay. You did.
Yeah. We've had unnamed tropical storms that hit us harder than this one did. So.
Yeah.
But those poor people in Fort Myers and Naples. I mean, my God.
Yeah, they're the ones to really worry about.
They're not going to be able to rebuild because of the building codes.
Yeah,
oh wow.
If you ever figured it out, he lives in a tiki house down at Disney. With all the birds chirp in the background.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. Except for mine's annoying and can't sing.
It's just like you.
Oh,
that was a good one. My wife just walked in. Let me get the bird out of here. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, guys.
I was going to ask if its name was Yoko.
Oh man. So we've covered a lot of stuff tonight. Is there anything else you want to bring up?
No, not really. I mean, that's some great questions.
Anything you want to get off your chest and vent about? Chuck Dixon rant?
No, there's I try not to do that. There's too much of that. People try to goad me into things. What do you think of Gay Robin? It's like, oh, come on.
What do you think about Eglinton's bird?
Well, it is annoying, and it obviously can't sing. So. But yeah, I mean, all these outrages in comics, this too shall pass. I mean, we'll look upon this period in comics and laugh.
And I always see that people are like, oh, Marvel DC are going to go under, or DC's going to buy Marvel.
No, that's ridiculous. I mean, Disney paid what, $4 billion for Marvel? They're not going to sell
something like that. Yeah.
Warner's makes a fortune off of licensing DC characters. I just think that they're going to shut down the comic division and license the characters themselves.
Yeah. Do you have any idea when do you think that they might stop with the comic book movies though?
The what?
The comic book movies. Do you have any guess at when they think they might stop?
I kind of see the cycle winding down, and the thing is, I know from the past that when these cycles end, they end overnight. And so the studios have to be thinking, maybe we need to dial back on these because we don't want the curtain to come down on us when we've got 9 of these in production.
Especially with DC starting over.
Yeah. I mean, because I remember when everything was spy movies, spy TV shows, spy everything, and then overnight, nothing.
Yep.
It was all gone.
Same with Westerns.
Westerns. Westerns cling on, thank God, because I love Westerns. But yeah, when the TV Western era was over, it ended. 3D comics, it ended overnight. Then the comics in the 1990s, the comic boom, it ended literally overnight. It was 1 month we were selling gangbusters, and next month you couldn't give them away.
Yeah, I love those little covers. So they have, I think they're particular, the ones that have the little.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, these are such like a cheesy thing, but they're kind of cool.
we sold a hell of a lot of them. I mean, people bought them. I don't know why, but they did. I mean, everybody's looking for the new gimmick,
right?
So
problem is there is no new gimmick. It's the same gimmick. Marvel Heroes, Heroes Reborn. They're just doing the same events, and they're not even changing the name.
Well, and the other problem is they're not exploring other genres. I mean, comics. The history of comics is not all superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
In the 70s, war and Western comics outsold the superheroes. In the 50s, it was horror, it was war, it was funny animal. This doubling down and specializing only in superheroes is a danger.
The one thing I did see from as far as exploring a little bit on genres, different genre, is they had Bruce Campbell come in and write a Sergeant Rock versus the Army of Dead.
I'm actually interested in reading that. I want to see that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. It did feel like I'm reading like Army of Darkness comic a little bit, but not so much where it overtook the personality of the Sergeant Rock.
Yeah, I definitely want. That's what I mean. It's a crossover thing. There's
Right.
the kind of thing that makes a jaded comic reader who's walked away go, I might look at that.
DC horror. I want more of that stuff.
Yeah.
Tomb of Dracula. I mean, I would love to get. We just did a retrospective here on Friday nights. Last week we talked about #1, and just going over that. I mean, I'm reading through that now. I'm reading through Werewolf by Night. I would love to see if they could actually get somebody who actually give them the creative freedom to write something, that just scares the crap out of you because the comic code is gone.
Right. Well, I mean, in the crowdfunding arena, I mean, I'm seeing lots of genres. I mean, I've written science fiction, I've written horror, I've written satire, I've written war stories, all kinds of stuff in the crowdfunding arena. I mean, 100 Ninja Bear. I mean, it's its own genre.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that's cool too, though. I mean, it's as far as Indiegogo and Kickstarter, allowing to people who basically are shadow banned or blacklisted from the comic community to actually still reach out to their fans that actually would rather read their stuff than read the new crap.
Well, I mean, there's a huge underserved comic readership that walked away from Marvel and DC, and they got no comics to read. And then you've got this huge army of unemployed or underemployed comic professionals. Where are they going to go? So it's guys like, Graham Nolan and Billy Tucci and guys like that. It's like, well, you're not going to stop me.
Jim Palance, his art, he's just to say he's gotten more risque with Terrence.
Well, that's you put the guardrails off Jim. Yeah, that's what you're going to get.
Like I saw he just got a cover from DC for the new next issue of Catwoman. And I was like, wait, you're putting this guy on a book when you had a better writer that people were actually picking up the book. Like, how stupid is marketing? Like,
well, pretty stupid.
Yeah.
If there even is marketing. I mean, I remember in the 90s when the sales started to go down and they fired 2 marketing people and hired a cover editor.
True, they laid off a lot of people at DC.
And I'm like, why would you should have hired 2 more marketing people.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of what I see today is a lot of the creators they have to market their own stuff.
Oh yeah,
on social
it's always
media.
been that way.
Yeah.
They used to support us doing store appearances and tours and stuff. Of course they did, because we were doing it on our own dime. But they didn't do this stuff on their own. They just couldn't figure it out. And every opportunity they had to promote comics, they missed it.
Would you ever currently it's the worst time to take over now for a bit. Would you ever take over, like, as far as like you saw Jim Lee did with DC? Would you ever do anything like as far as editorial?
I mean, work in the offices?
Yeah, and showing the other guys like, hey, this is actually how you write it.
No, there's no way. I mean, I do a lot of that in Ask Chuck Dixon, and there's a lot of my own experiences and the way I work and stuff like that, and advice for people trying to break in. But no, I wouldn't. When Denny O'Neil announced he was going to retire, he asked me if I wanted to be Batman Group editor. The job was mine if I wanted it, but I said I can't take the pay cut.
I know.
Take the pay cut and live in New York? I mean, no, I can't do it.
If you would have kept the pay, not a pay cut, would you have taken it?
I might have considered it, but I wouldn't have lasted long. Like
I said, I'd rather have somebody who actually knows how to write the books, actually like saying like, hey, you know what? No, we're not going to do this crap. Like, that's what I liked about the Jim Shooter era, Marvel.
Yeah.
Like, they actually like told you like, no, don't be stupid, don't be a diva, get your shit on time, and just put out something that actually people want to read. Cater to who your fans are. Nowadays, like, they don't cater to anybody but the internet. They do the Twitter trolls. Twitter.
They vilified Jim Shooter, but he got results. He put Marvel on the map. He made it a profitable publishing venture, which it hadn't been in a long time.
I think Brain, you told me that's why Byrne probably went over to DC.
Yeah. Oh, Byrne hated him.
Yeah.
Because he would try to tell Byrne how to tell a story. There were rules you had to follow. But okay, you could say I don't agree with the rules, but you can't argue the results.
Yeah, Byrne had different reasons than a lot of people, because Byrne understood the work for hire premise, which was Shooter's, thing. But yeah, but I'm guessing that was just a personality clash. Imagine that somebody that those personalities clash.
It was two alpha dogs in the same room.
Wasn't Byrne the one that backed up? He said something along the lines of, "You guys knew it was work for hire when you came in, so stop bitching about more royalties and all that."
I don't know that he ever said that.
I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly.
I don't know. I mean, yeah,
he was the one that.
You know, those were the rules.
I think his was the creators that thought they should, get a percentage of the characters that they worked on or that they created for the company, while working for them. I think that was Byrne's thing. Said, you created those characters in Marvel's employ. They own those, not you.
Yeah, see, that's what was different at DC. You got participation in characters you created.
Jeanette Kahn really pushed for that.
Yeah, Jeanette Kahn and Paul Levitz both pioneered that, basically so they could keep talent. Because remember, the indie publishers were offering all kinds of creator-owned deals, and so they were hemorrhaging talent. And to keep them, they had to start promising you something. And what's it cost them? It doesn't cost them anything. If the character doesn't go anywhere, they don't pay you anything. If it makes them $2 million, yeah, they got to give you a piece.
All right.
So it just seemed fair, but Marvel. Everything at Marvel was different. At Marvel, they didn't pay royalties; they paid incentives, because by law, incentives are a gift, and they can rescind them. Original art returns at Marvel are considered an incentive. In other words, they don't have to give you original artwork back. They can they have withheld original artwork from artists that they didn't like, and they have withheld royalties from artists and writers they didn't like.
And then they
like
sell
Jack
that
Kirby.
art.
Yeah, Jack Kirby. But lots of others, and again, no one will complain about it because they won't hire me again. Yeah, so you just let them screw you over like this? It's not right.
Took forever for Jack to get a part of the art that he gave to Marvel.
Well, so much of it had been stolen.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible the way they treated original art back then to begin with. I mean, the nightmare stories about how they treated original artwork, just awful. But the but that's the history of comics. I just don't like when they change the rules. They move the goalposts. I mean, after Paul Levitz left DC, DC moved the goalpost on royalties from TV and movies to where we're getting a fraction of what we're getting before.
Wow. And this is at the time when they're everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Graham Nolan put it best. He said if Paramount had made Dark Knight Rising, he said you and I would be multimillionaires.
Wow.
Which is true. I mean, because we would have had a piece of that $1.5 billion movie.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But as it was, we had to sue them. So
because of the Bane inclusion, right?
Yeah, because they told us, oh, you're going to make this amount and that amount and that amount, and then we didn't. The amount they sent us was pitiful. And they kept saying, well, there's more, and then the next check would be pitiful. And finally, we said, okay, that's it, man. We're lawyering up because this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And did it go well for you?
It went okay. Well, neither one of us were satisfied, but you can only go to war with Hollywood lawyers for so long before you lose your mind. And we just thought, this isn't worth it. They are so good at slow walking. And the thing about entertainment lawyers is they never understand anything you're saying. And they pretend they do, and then they send you a letter saying that we didn't understand that. So they're trying to get you to basically run through all your money with lawyers just by saying, "Oh, I don't get it. What are you talking about?" Just to keep the hourly rates going. It's just
true. Yeah, because they have the deep pockets. You don't.
Yeah, I mean, I always say they got lawyers hanging on hooks waiting to go after you. I mean, they got them under retainer. They're already ready to go to war. They just okay, go after this guy, sue that guy.
Yeah.
See, who are these? Now, and if this comes off as insulting, I'm sorry, but
well, you're gone now.
Yeah, I know, right?
I said,
but the thing is no. I guess what I was wondering, and obviously you've been around for a while, so it's different for you than say somebody new. But after that Batman 66 and the TV show and the Hulk and Wonder Woman, it's strange to me that contracts didn't include that to the point where this particular amount of money ad nauseum from the now until the end of time. But then again, I don't particularly understand the law, the law that's involved in it. I guess I'm asking is if you could explain a little bit as to why that wouldn't happen.
Specifically, why they wouldn't give us rights to
Yeah.
it forever? Or
Yeah, like when you're coming up with a contract on your end, why not for every medium? I guess it would be like every medium known and unknown from here to the end of eternity.
Well, the problem here is like when we signed a participation agreement on Bane, it was a set percentage of whatever DC Comics got. Okay. So if DC Comics got X amount, we were going to get a percentage of that X amount. And that was cool until in the early 2000s, Paul Levitz leaves and they did what they called redefining net receipts. So basically what Warner's did to DC, company they own, they said, we're not going to give you the percentages we gave you before, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so the movie and TV receipts go drastically down. Now, outside licensing that DC does on its own with Lego or Sega or whatever, that remained the same. God bless Lego. They love Bane and they love Spoiler, and they use both those characters as often as they can, even when it makes no sense. And so that piece is the same as it would have been under Paul Levitz. But
So
the movie
you
and TV, it's embarrassing to tell you if I do a character and he appears on The Flash, the check that I get. It's embarrassing.
So you are potentially you're going to have better earnings on a minifigure
Exactly.
from Lego than you are from a TV appearance on The Flash or Bane in Dark Knight Rises.
Absolutely.
So,
Wow.
do you? What about as far as I know that Todd McFarlane's doing all these McFarlane toys, the Batman figures like that. Do you get anything as far as the Bane figures?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything Bane, and if they miss it, we got to tell them. I mean, they did a figure of Osawito, Bane's teddy bear, dressed as Bane, and we alerted them to this fact. Hey, you owe us money on that, and they said no, we don't, because Osawito is an inanimate object. We said, not when Bane has nightmares about him, he isn't. And also, we said, you gave us money for the subway rocket. That's an inanimate object. It's something that Batman rode around in. So, you kind of got to fight with them every once in a while to remind them to do the right thing.
That is something. And we're being asked, and this is a good one. So like Injustice, the Arkham series, you got a piece of that?
Oh yeah. That was good money. I'll tell you, this is the way it used to work. When Levitz was still in charge, Batman Begins came out, and I go to the movies and I see it, and I see the scene, does it come in black, where he picks out the Batmobile. I call Paul and I said, in every other version of Batman and Alfred build the Batmobile. I said, which I never bought. Now they're automotive engineers. Creating the coolest car ever made, and that's the only time they ever do a car, and it's the coolest car ever. I said, I'm the only one who wrote Batman literally picking Batmobile off the lot at a Wayne Tech factory, military plant. And Paul says, I'll look into it. Calls me an hour later, says, we looked into it, and you're right. We're writing you a check. And that's the way it used to work.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, that's
awesome.
Now,
it's the way it should work.
Couldn't even get anybody to talk to you on the phone about it.
Yeah.
I got gigs on California tax forms one time, and because somehow California decided that I lived in California, and DC started withdrawing California taxes from my checks, my freelance checks, and I had to call. I couldn't get anybody to talk to me. I said, this isn't fair. And I finally got a hold of a Warner Brothers executive, and I got him so pissed off that he called DC and just reamed them out until they straightened it out and got me my money. But there's no freelance relationships like that. They just don't care. And now that their offices are closed, I don't know what you do. You drive to the right house? I mean, I don't know what you do.
That's like calling talk to someone about your bill, your healthcare bill, and or insurance bill, and you get this. It's over the same person.
Yeah,
that's gonna be frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, it's like running into that information tree. press 1 for this, press 2 for that. It's like,
Yeah,
It's-
and it takes forever to find a real person to talk.
And then they
to.
transfer you over. You're like, well, hang on, I'll transfer to someone else who may knows more than what I know.
And they never do.
yeah. And then when you do get someone, they don't speak English. So
There's that too. Yep. That's my
No.
job.
I like I said, you get, but in most cases, it's ringing, and then they hang up on you.
yeah,
You're on the call, and it's like, oh, we'll be right with you. We transfer you. You need to get
Yep.
the dial tone.
yeah, you're going on hold forever.
This is
Like-
this is kind of fascinating. So Bane is your big dog.
Yeah.
Who's the next one down?
Well, the next thing down, as far as royalty paying, was my adaptation of The Hobbit,
Oh,
really?
wow.
which
Okay.
to this day pays out, like a slot machine. So
Oh, wow.
That's
it's always
nice.
a bestseller somewhere in the world.
Do you get
Okay.
any money for the, or probably, I don't know how much money you probably get for Stephanie Brown? When
They
use
don't
her,
use her very much. That's the problem. She's only
Yeah.
had like one action figure. And when they had Stephanie Brown as Batgirl, they wouldn't pay me royalties.
wow.
And I said,
Really?
but I created Stephanie Brown. Well, this is just a version of Batgirl. I said, yeah, it's the Stephanie Brown version.
Yeah, it's
You
called.
see, you
yeah.
see the blonde hair. You see how they call her
Yeah.
Stephanie. Yeah, that's that girl.
I said, I created
Yeah.
Stephanie Brown. I created her alter ego, and they wouldn't even send me a comp figure. I'm like,
Yeah,
Oh,
the
wow.
current ongoing Cassandra Cain and and her and or Batgirls, it's called. Like, and you're not getting any royalties from that. That's just crap.
no,
Yeah.
and I used to be able to, you used to be able to call the guys and license things. I mean, if you saw a toy come out and go, do you have any of them laying around? Yeah, they throw it in a box and send it to you. I mean, it was all casual and organic. Now it's all lawyered up and corporate, and they don't want to give you anything. They don't have to
Yeah.
give you.
It reminds me of Simpsons when they have like they come to the 20 lawyers armed and like just march in all once. They're like,
Yeah.
that's it. Just they would rather intimidate the heck crap out of you because they know that eventually they have more money than you and they can bully you around. And
Well,
it's-
that's why they settled with Kirby estate, because the next step for the Kirby family was the Supreme Court, and the Kirby family lawyers were going to challenge work for hire, and they couldn't have that, so they settled.
Yeah, well, didn't something like that just
Dick-
come up? The work for hire thing. I think it was Ditko.
Ditko.
Yeah, Ditko.
They're still working their way through the courts. Yeah,
Oh, fingers crossed. I know, I get it. It would put all sorts of characters into public domain. It would make it so, or at least it would make it so they don't own it. I want that kind of chaos now.
yeah.
I don't care the way that they've been treating the characters these days. I actually don't care if they're not owned by the companies that I used to be loyal to anymore. If Batman goes into the public domain, I think that's just going to be more awesome than ever. If Superman does, I think he's the next one up after Mickey Mouse. I would love to see that now. I used to, oh no, you can't get rid of DC's biggest hero. Now I'm like, DC's fucking him up anyway.
Right,
Well,
right. They
true.
were not good stewards. They
Yeah.
haven't
No,
been
they're
good
not.
stewards, I should say.
Yeah, and Marvel bought Malibu Comics, shelved them within
Right.
a year, and just all they wanted was for their coloring. Nothing
Well,
else.
that's why DC bought Wildstorm for the coloring.
Mhm.
It's and like I said, I see a lot of Malibu and I see a lot of Wildstorm in the dollar bins. I mean,
Yeah.
I actually still have dollar bins. It's crazy.
Well,
I'm
I mean,
surprised
my youngest son said he was just at Ollie's, and he says they're selling bagged comics from the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
They do. They on bags like 10. You'll find like 10 issues in a bag, and yeah,
Right.
for like 10
That's
bucks.
insane.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and Jack's bringing up the whole monopoly. Disney owns everything. SCOTUS needs to break it up because that's not fair. They own pretty much every Fox, all these different companies now. And then the point where there's no competition. YouTube has no competition really. It's I like competition because it makes people actually have to earn their shit. Their
Yeah,
stuff.
and we need the competition because everything sucks now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so rare to see a good movie anywhere because it's all the same crap over and over and over again.
I see them all the time. I watch all the back issues. They say movies. I go back. I mean, I'm still watching some of those Angels with Dirty Faces. Watching like the
Right.
early '40s, movies, and just seeing like, oh my gosh, I've watched this before. 30 different times in other movies.
Something we've been promoting is that, modern day comics are disappointing, but you haven't read everything that's been produced. So
Right.
you still have this great hobby. You still have things to go and visit, be they golden age, silver age, bronze, or modern. I don't like the modern because it's supposed to be 90 to now.
Right.
That's 30 years, guys. Let's
Right.
get something in between there.
In the tinfoil era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But there's so much great stuff out there. And Austin P's a little bit surprised that you adopted The Hobbit. I recommend you go to a site called Comic Vine. Look up Chuck Dixon. It'll have everything that he's done. Go check it out. A lot of times when I do have something on the auction, I always mention, and it's by Chuck Dixon.
Well, thank you.
Means it's going to be good. Check it out.
Have you ever gone on the Wikipedia for you and see and just look at this? They list all the comic books you read and like, where's the rest of it? You know?
Yeah. I go on there to make sure it's all true. So I check it every once in a while. But yeah, you have to go to Grand Comic Book Database to see the full bibliography. It goes on and on and on.
Like I said, I've looked at other writers' Wikipedias, and I look at yours. It's like, where's the rest? I guess you just wrote everything. It's like,
yeah. Grand Comic Book Database is the place to go for any of that stuff because they don't miss anything. That's
true. And I hate Wikipedia. Anybody can edit it.
I'd say we go to Wikipedia and make Chuck Dixon the Chuck Norris of comics. Chuck Dixon wrote his first comic on the inside of a bear skin. Do that kind of stuff. I think
he did. He did in Florida. He saw that black bear. He killed that bear and wrote it while he with the blood.
That's where Hunter Ninja Bear came from.
Yes.
I wrote it on bear skin in the middle of the night.
I was a ninja. I hunted it. It was a bear.
I lit the room with bear fat.
You think it was something having Kiss put a little bit of blood into it? That whole freaking comic book was written with bear blood.
That was the other thing. The whole any truth that Mark, if you know anything about this, the Mark Grunwald putting his blood into the ink of the first Squadron Supreme after his death.
It wasn't his blood. It was
blood,
made of ashes.
Ashes.
No idea.
No, yeah. No. I heard that. I was like, that can't be true.
Yeah, I don't think so. I can't imagine that being true.
Can you imagine? Like, I got piece of Mark Grunwald slabbed here.
Wow.
Yeah. So, what would be the craziest? I guess the craziest thing you've ever experienced working on a comic book, or I guess working with anybody as by the Marvel or DC offices. You know.
Oh
you can
man.
tell.
Well, two stories come to mind. One was for a brief while, Don Daly, who was the wildest editor I ever had. He was editing Savage Sword of Conan, and he wanted to change up artists. And he was looking around for a new artist, guy to throw into the mix. And he comes up with this artist's name. And the assistant editor, I was there for this, said, "Yeah, you can't hire that guy. He's in prison." And Don says, "What did he do?" He says, "He murdered his wife with a hammer." And Don pauses for a minute and in all seriousness says, "Damn, he would have been the perfect Conan artist." Another one that comes to mind was I was in Larry Hama's office and everybody's working, doing stuff. And I'm like waiting to go to lunch with them or something. I don't know what, but I'm just like leafing through comics and looking at G.I. Joe toys. And Marc Texiera comes in. I don't know if you've ever met Marc Texiera, but let's just say he lights up a room. And he looks at me and he goes, "Who are you?" I saw I'm Chuck Dixon. And he goes, "Chuck Dixon, you write The Punisher." And he starts like air guitaring a machine gun going, "Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da." And the most amazing thing about it is no one looks up. Everyone's still talking on the phone or typing. I'm like, oh my God, this guy must be like this all the time.
This is a normal Tuesday.
Yeah, this is Marc Texiera visiting. So
yeah. How do you react to that?
I thought the guy was funny. I mean, he's one of the most charming people you'd ever want to meet. But everyone in comics has a Marc Texiera story.
All right. Well, here's the opposite. The worst.
Oh man, there's been so many. My last Batman summit, which I'm surprised didn't end in blood. It was a nightmare. Denny was gone. We had an indifferent group editor, and we had a writer there who thought he was going to run the summit. It's like, you don't let the writer run the summit. You let the editors have to run the summit. But the editors sort of abdicated. And it was just, in the end result, just a total ton of crap that came out of the summit that's unreadable garbage. It was just saddening. It's one of the reasons I left to go to CrossGen. It's just totally disheartened. And the worst thing about it was, on the final day, the Superman group editor comes to visit to tell us what they've been working on during their summit. And he begins to tell us about a 6-month arc in which Superman gets amnesia and thinks he's Batman. And so for 6 months in every Superman title, Superman is dressed as Batman. He gets done presenting this and no one says anything. And I said, come on. I said, we're going to have 5 Superman titles where he dresses as Batman and 5 Batman titles with Batman in them for 6 months. I said, this will never fly. I said, no one's going to want to read this. And then I found out that they hadn't told Paul Levitz about it.
Oh no.
So I went back and basically told Paul, do you know what they're going to do on the Superman titles? And he hit the ceiling. You know,
I'm sure you want to hit other things too.
yeah. And a few months later, I was gone. I was adios. I went to CrossGen.
Fast forward to today, only 10 Batman titles.
I'm
And
surprised.
you see where that gets them. It's law of diminishing returns.
I'm surprised we're not getting Batman Presents Green Lantern.
Yeah, did they have a Batman team up book? Well, how they missed that one?
I know, right? We constantly are telling you those books, the DC Comics Presents, the Brave and the Bold, the Marvel Team Up, the Marvel 2-in-1, great ways to introduce your characters. Try it sometime.
They don't think of that stuff ananymore.
No,
It's like when I did the Richard Dragon series, they didn't bother to reintroduce the character of the Batman beforehand, so no one knew who he was.
Wow. Can I fanboy just a little bit?
Sure.
I was looking at your stuff here, going, okay, what are some of the, we all know the Batman, what are some of the other stuff? Let me tell you guys, something you need to search for is a 4-issue miniseries, Followed Marvels. It's like, I know they did other things after, more popular, but Code, what was that? Code of Honor.
Call of Duty, I think it was called.
No, Code of Honor.
Was it Code of Honor? Okay, well, you remember
Yeah.
better than I do. You're the fan.
Yeah.
He's looking on Wikipedia. So
No, I was looking up on the Comic Vine, looking through, and I was like, okay, I want to, I know there's some smaller titles as well as Batman that you wrote, and this book was so freaking good. By the way, it was one of those painted series, the superheroes through the eyes of the average man. In this case, it's a cop. You start him off as a rookie, and he goes through at one point. He's the cop that the Punisher meets in an actual book, and not an actual book. You get what I'm saying? An already published book, and it's basically him trying to keep his morals, his sense of morals, in this corrupt, constantly violent world. At one point in time, he runs across the Kingpin, kind of stares him down, and the Kingpin just throws a $1,000 bill at him, where he's holding it in the wallet. I love that scene where his wife is mad at him, about to leave him, and he pulls out the $1,000 bill. I can help us, and the heartbreak that the wife felt. It's just, it seems like that, man. I mean, you got the big ones that connect yourself to the Marvel universe already established, but seems like that is what just kind of brings everything down to the ground, to where you're like, wow, I can relate to that look of shame, the look of desperation in both the husband and the wife's eyes. Amazing scene. But I recommend you guys, if you haven't checked it out, go find that. It's a Code of Honor 4-issue miniseries, prestige format, great series, dude. Seriously, golf clap on that one. That was awesome.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
But based on that note, I've got to skip. Gail came home and she started cooking up some dinner, and
Yeah, I was about to ask, do you guys just do this all night, or?
Oh, well, no. Honestly, I was looking to see because Tim said he was going to come back in the chat at least.
Is that what we're waiting for?
I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
If you have to leave,
Chuck, they're not going to turn off until you say you got to go.
I do have to go.
There you go.
But it's been this has been terrific. You got to have me back.
One other question. If you, I'm kind of embarrassed if you ever look at this channel now. We do a lot of comic book readings, and we're actually kind of ad lib. If you ever wanted to be a part of that, we get a kick out reading old Kirby stuff as far as Fantastic Four. We kind of just ham it up.
Well, I'll take a look at one and let you know.
And then we'll never see you again.
About that, yeah. It was nice meeting you for this one and only time, sir.
I try to get Tim on there. Tim's like, I'd just rather just watch.
There are sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'd rather just watch.
Tim couldn't handle one of our readings.
Like I said, if you ever want to come back on just to hang out or whatever, just
I'll let you know. No, this was fun. I really enjoyed this. Like I say, I don't get to go to cons, so I get to talk to people here. So very cool.
This has been a blast. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right.
It's been an honor.
Okay, another time. Bye.
Take care.
Yep, later.
Bye, Jack.
All right, so that was Chuck Dixon, legendary comic book writer from the 90s for DC Comics, as well as a little bit of Marvel and pretty much everything else. Other than that, I mean, Edie, if you have anything to plug or anybody else?
No, I'm not going to plug anybody, but
Thank you.
No, it's I guess you know what, the plug that I've already done. Look, go find those books. You're going to do yourself a favor. We're always consistently saying you don't have to drop out of comics because modern comics suck. There's some great stuff out there that you probably haven't even heard of, like the pirate comic I brought up called El Cazador that was done in the 2000s. Chuck Dixon wrote a freaking amazing story. Code of Honor, look for that. It's amazing. Beyond even the Batman, you can find some great things. Team 7 was brought up. The Nom was brought up. This man wrote some amazing comics.
G.I. Joe stuff from the 2012s.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
A lot of Marvel Comics presents. So, there's some good stuff out there. As far as videos are concerned, at this point, I'm flying by the ear, learning Gail's new thing. I might have something tomorrow at 9, but I don't want to step in y'all's toes.
I'll just show you real quickly. There is one more thing. He sent me a bunch of links, but I didn't get a chance to show them off. It is right here. This is his from his Amazon. His current thing he's been doing now is little novels he's been doing online here, the Kindle store. So if you like digital or if you like paperback, they offer that too. It's stuff he's been working on. So
awesome. Very cool.
Robin Hood was the one he worked in Xenoscope too for a little bit too before the COVID. Then through Kindle Comixology, you can read all his Nightwing stuff. Nightwing's really good. I've been enjoying it. Moon Knight, Marc Spector, Omnibus. Look at that, $125.
Yeah, if I could say something real quick.
No, you can't. Sorry.
I'm going to anyway. Yeah, we truly did have a legend on tonight, and he gave us 3 hours of his time.
Right.
Yeah. Would you think about that next time some asshat on Twitter gets his panties in a wad because someone said something slightly disparaging?
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Like you said, I didn't know what to expect, you know what I mean? Because whenever I meet someone new, I don't care what their politics are. I don't know what their personality is. I mean, and this guy went out his way. He spent 3 hours with us.
I'm sure the last hour was like, God, don't these guys ever stop?
so like I said, go to your local comic book stores. Check out Amazon. He's on there. Check out archaven.com, I think it's called. And then for any more of the links he's got, like I said, in the video description link down below, look there and you can find more stuff about his stuff. Check out his YouTube channel, Chuck Dixon. The guy is very sociable and it's very rare. He could. I mean, if he could be anybody else, he could say just tell you, like, know what, you got to pay me for my time. And thank God, because that's going towards Puppetina, not me. That's a bill.
That's it. That was very nice of him to do
Yeah.
this and to stay on as long as he did. And I said like Trusty says, he's a class act.
True.
That
Very
was a fun 3 hours.
That was.
And thank you, Tim Lim, if you're here somewhere lurking. Thank you for introducing us.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Ted.
Go buy Common America.
Yes, do it. You still? I don't know. Actually, the last campaign might have ended.
Every 3 months there's a new one.
That's true. That's true. If
And you can buy
miss
the back.
one, wait 3 months. There'll be
Yes.
an announcement of the next one, and then you can get like a whole omnibus. It'll be
I'm a
awesome.
bit sorry I missed the statue. I really wanted a Common America on these shelves.
I'm sure if you talk to Tim, he probably.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind purchasing one. He's done a lot.
Well, you can give him $100 for the statue.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm sure Twiddles also regrets you not getting one.
That is true. Yeah. Actually, I don't put statues in Twiddle's line of fire anymore. He's he taught me better.
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
got you trained.
And also, Evil Black Cat, thank you for staying up or getting up early in the morning. It was like 7 o'clock for your time, just so you could just basically talk for 5 minutes.
Yeah, basically just stay starstruck.
I used to own this Hobbit that he did. I'm looking at it right now.
You're owning Hobbits?
No, I used to own that Hobbit.
He did a graphic novel of the Hobbit.
Yeah.
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 It
Like
was a 3-issue prestige format.
Yeah.
Yep, good times.
For everyone complaining about how much Batman there is currently, you can blame Chuck Dixon because he's the one that made him this popular.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, do we have any videos, anything upcoming we want to plug?
As far as I know, you have an auction this Saturday, right?
We got an auction on Saturday. I'm going to be doing something. We got to finish that tier list. We're going to be doing that either tomorrow or the next. And we've just been having fun with doing those live. So
For those who are new here, if you haven't subscribed to this channel and also subscribed to I Love Comics and Asha Comics, he does stuff there.
He does some stuff. Actually, coming up Thursday.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was about to say hit like
Oh yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead and hit the like button.
and
But then
share
also-
this.
Subscribe.
But then
Yeah.
also coming up on Thursday over on Skip and Tasha's channel, me and Skip and I think Ash is going to be joining us. Maybe that's why he's yelling Thursday. We're going to be talking about Fantastic Four, the Jonathan Hickman run. Skip and I did a retrospect on Volume 1 a little while back, and now I just read Volume 2. I laughed, I cried, emotions were in flux. I think this is Ash's first time reading through it, so it'll be a ton of fun. So be on the lookout Thursday.
Yep.
Also, new record for us: 21 people watching.
At one point, you had 27.
That's
awesome.
insane for us. We still
That's
have 18, and Chuck Dixon's not even here.
That's great for you. So
Time,
here's
no
the thing. Please help out this channel, even if it's not monetary. The help. What you could do is share this out. It's a great live stream. Share this out. Hit like. Do all that. It helps the algorithm, and maybe they'll be good. And it can be. This can be. What do you call it? Expanded upon to grow your channel more. I think so. Please, by all means, ladies and gentlemen, hit that like, hit the share, put a comment into the comment section when this is posted.
True. Helps with the algorithm. And also, if you want to donate to the channel, I mean, we do comic book ratings on here, but we also pay for the StreamYard as well. So if you can donate $1, that's cool. If you can't, though, do everything else. Share it out, word of mouth.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, check back here tomorrow. Thursday. Actually, take it back. Wednesday night, there's gonna be a couple streams here. Thursday night, the best of the week. We talk about the best comic books that we like, and then Friday there's a reading on here, and then Saturday go to the auction. Check out books there. $1 books, really affordable.
Really
I
good
mean,
bargains.
Good books. The books we were talking about tonight, not necessarily about Chuck Dixon, but they're from that era with other good writers as well.
Yeah.
And that being said, I hope you guys had fun, and then I hope you guys come back tomorrow. I mean, like, you know, I love this. I don't want to end it. We have 19 people watching.
I have to end it. I've got to be up at 5 in the
Yeah.
morning for work. I should have logged out an hour ago.
I've been here where it's like, oh my gosh, this is a record audience for me. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
We've got to milk this. Yeah, no, but
And thank you all to those who subscribe. We're at 201 subscribers now. It's cool.
Hey!
Hey, congratulations,
That's awesome.
guys.
And now we're done with the channel. Good night.
Yeah, that's it. We're our milestone. Bye, everybody.
All right, take it easy, guys, and I'll see you when we see you.
this is the stream that
Good night, kids.
and
Later,
it goes
people.
on.